Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Township's Planning, Building, and Environmental Committee. My name is Joanne Chichok, and I'll be chairing the meeting this evening. Before we start the meeting, I'd like to ask that all cell phones, pagers, and PDAs be turned off. Additionally, for your information, we are audio and video recording this meeting. Now, anyone wishing to have information from this meeting would be advised to put their name. In fact, we'd like everyone here to sign in, name and address, and phone number and email. And if you wish to get any of the information from tonight's meeting, please indicate which file it's pertaining to, and you'll be included on any circulation of materials. Thank you. Okay, so change in order of items on the agenda from my colleagues around the table here. Seeing none, then I'll move on to ask for disclosure of pecuniary interest and/or conflict. Seeing none, we'll move on to the public meetings under the Planning Act. There are two this evening, and the first is a public meeting to consider a zoning bylaw amendment application by Elsie Marie Crown. Nikolai Dykstra is the agent. Planning Act requires under Section 34, Sub 12, that before passing a zoning bylaw amendment, council must hold at least one public meeting for the purpose of informing the public in respect to the amendment. The purpose of this meeting is to receive comments and answer questions from the public regarding the amendment to the Township of West Lincoln zoning bylaw. At this point, no decision has been made on the proposed amendment, and any comment received will be taken into account by council in their consideration. Pardon me. Further, the Planning Act requires that through Section 34, Sub 13, the council advise the public that if a person or body does not make an oral submission at a public meeting or make written submissions to the township before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of council for the Township of West Lincoln to the Ontario Municipal Board. Madam Clerk, could you please advise the method and dates on which public notice was given?
Proper notice was given by way of individual notice dated March 15, 2017.
Thank you very much. Mr. Treble, you seem to be at the table by yourself, so I guess it's you that's going to give us the reasons and purpose for the zoning bylaw amendment.
I will give it a shot, Madam Chair. Perhaps, if, Madam Chair, if possible, you might find it beneficial to flip to page 28 of the agenda package.
Mr. Treble, we don't flip, we have to scroll.
You have to scroll, this is true.
So,
And I've got a computer that's frozen here tonight, so I'm doing a bit of flipping.
28. Is that cold?
28.
Yes,
Is that colder?
it is cool. So page 28, Madam Chair, is a survey that perhaps assists a little bit with an understanding of this application. The application commenced as two severances that were considered by the Committee of Adjustment in March. The farm parcel, when you add all of the various parts that are illustrated on page 28, when you add them all up, the farm parcel is about 100 acres in size. It has some barns over on the east side of the property, on the south side of Concession 4 Road, that are labeled as existing agricultural. And you'll see around that grouping of barns, there is a circle, which is actually a separation distance requirement, a minimum distance separation calculation under the minimum code of practice requirements, which are in our zoning bylaw. The effect of this application is to take an existing small holding, which is parts 5 and 6 on the plan. It's an existing small holding.
on the right-hand side, on the lower inset.
That it explains it in a bit more detail down there. That's right, Madam Chair. So 5 and 6 represent the existing lot, and the applicants just arrived. Perfect. 5
I do
and 6.
apologize for members of the public. This is contained in the agenda, but we don't have it up on the overhead. So
5 and 6 represent the existing lots, Madam Chair, that exist there now as one parcel, separate from the farm. So there's 100 acres plus this small lot, which is a little over half an acre in size. It's undersized for normal standards. There is a residence on there, and the residence is a related member of the family, but is clearly inside that separation distance arc that's illustrated as the requirement for setback from the barn on the farm. And the representatives in attendance tonight, which are children of the farmer, would like to build a new house on the small holding where grandma actually resides. And they would have an apartment in the house or an in-law suite for grandma to be looked after and build a new house. But inside the minimum distance separation arc, that substantially, it's almost impossible to find a way to build. So what we've done is we've done a boundary adjustment. I'm not calling it minor, but we've done a boundary adjustment where part 1 is being added to parts 5 and 6, and then part 5 will be conveyed back to the farm. So in essence, we've shifted the parcel sideways or to the west, and increased it in size to ensure that we have adequate area for septic bed. And there is also a tributary of, I think it's connected to 15-mile drain that flows through part of the property as well. So at the end of the day, Madam Chair, what this meeting tonight is about is to zone part 1 and part 6 to rural residential, to recognize the small holding nature of the new lot, and to recognize the separation distance requirements, and retain the farmland, which will be parts 3, 4, 2, and 5 at the end of the process for agricultural purposes. Some of the existing buildings are somewhat closer to the road than required, so there'll be some exceptions to the agricultural zoning. And actually, at the same time, Madam Chair, as we have the buildings that we're talking about in the blow-up at the bottom on the right-hand side of the picture labeled existing agricultural, there is also another set of buildings over on the very left-hand side or west side of the parcel, which have been merged on title at some point in the past. So there's really 2 sets of farm buildings on this farm, as well as the small holding, which has an existing lot. So, Madam Chair, the essence of this application is a boundary adjustment to create a new lot. The new lot needs to be recognized by rezoning to an RUR with an exception. The farm parcel will be recognized as an agricultural lot with an exception at the end of the process. And the effect of doing it this way is to push the new house, further away from the farm buildings so that future expansion possibilities are not restricted and the farmer's ability to farm will be, in fact, improved through this process at the end of the day.
So, Mr. Tribble, just before you leave that point, the idea is that a new home would be built, as you said, but the old home on part 5 in this drawing would be taken down as part of this whole process.
That is correct, Madam Chair. The Part 5 dwelling will be removed once a new dwelling is constructed and occupied, and wording of the proposed zoning bylaw, should we get to that stage, would encapsulate all of that.
So still with one house on the parcel, except that we've mixed up the parcel. Part is going back to agriculture, and part that was agriculture is going to be residential,
Correct.
right? Okay. Thank you for that very clear description without a picture. Is the applicant or the authorized agent, I guess that's Nikolai, wishing to speak to the item, or do you think that we've covered the material?
That seemed pretty right on. Everything was labeled there correctly.
Thank you. Mr. Dykstra. Mr. Dykstra has just addressed us, so just for the record, sorry. Okay. So this is the point at which we ask if there are any oral or written submissions from anyone present regarding proposed zoning bylaw amendment. And I stress that this may be the only public meeting held with respect to this application. Therefore, if a member of the public would like to make a comment, you should do so now or provide a written comment prior to the passing of the bylaw. Elsewise, the OMB may not consider your comments or this council will not consider comments if they're not made this evening. Also, anyone wishing to speak are required to come forward to the microphone and state their name and address for the record prior to speaking. Now that I've said all that, I'm going to ask once more, is there anyone here wishing to speak, address council? Seeing none, I'm going to confine it to table and ask whether members of committee, pardon me, have questions or comments to make regarding the application. Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the Director of Planning. Brian, will there be an APO placed on this property after this, should it go through? Agricultural purposes only is what that means.
Through you, Madam Chair, agricultural purposes only zoning APO really doesn't apply in this case because it's just a boundary adjustment. The APO trigger does not kick in. Plus, each of the parcels will have residences on them, so APO really has no effect at that point. So no, in short answer, Madam Chair, it would not be required in this instance.
So this,
Right.
through you, so this is a unique situation, really.
Through you, Madam
Odd.
Chair, as Madam Chair and I discussed with Councillor Ganan at pre-agenda last week, we haven't had a minor boundary adjustment application in a while, and ironically, we have two of them on the agenda tonight. So, yeah, we're getting used to the surplus severance applications where APO is an automatic trigger. This is not one of them.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Not a problem. Councillor Bilsma.
Thank you very much. Just two quick questions. Part 6, why is that thin little sliver there? Is that the part that's kind of being shared? Currently, the residential is 5 and 6, and the proposal is to go 1 and 6? Or is there an easement, or why is that little sliver a little sliver?
Mr. Treble.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, the existing lot or the existing small holding is 5 and 6.
Okay.
Since we're doing a boundary adjustment, some part of the original lot has to stay, so the token part is 6. Really, that's in a nutshell what's going on.
Okay.
Part 1 is big enough on its own, but to keep it a boundary adjustment, it really needs part of the original lot to stay with it. So that's why Part 6 is proposed.
Okay, so that clears that up. My second question has to do with, now, my understanding, the reason that we're doing this is because the circle encompasses what was formerly 5 and 6. The circle still encompasses a good chunk of the new 1 and 6 lot. Am I to understand then that the house has to be outside that circle and in that little part left there all the way to the west side? Is that the understanding?
Through you, Madam Chair, I believe there will be a minor deficiency recognized through the rezoning when the recommendation report comes forward, but a very minor recommendation. The applicant is going to do everything he can to put most of his dwelling outside that arc. Things like the septic bed and garage do not have to be outside the arc. Excuse me. So the dwelling portion or the habitable portion of the house, to the best extent possible, is proposed to be outside that arc. So he's doing everything he can to comply within reason.
Okay, no further, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bilsma. Anyone else wishing to speak? No? Okay. Please be advised that this is a technical report and that is being considered this evening by the Planning Committee, and that a recommendation report will be forthcoming to a future Planning Committee and Council. Please also be advised that once Planning Committee and/or Council has made a decision with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment, and if approved by Council, a notice of its passing will be circulated with an appeal period. The sheet for signing in indicating that you are interested in any of the future actions on this file is at the door, and we would ask you to sign your name and indicate by a check mark in the column marked crown if you wish to be advised of subsequent meetings and/or decisions. Now, therefore, people who are interested in observing council and/or committee meetings about a particular bylaw should not solely rely on mailed notices and thus miss the opportunity to attend the meetings. It is suggested that you watch the township's website for postings of agendas to review items that will be discussed at a council and/or committee meeting. The agendas for meetings are posted on the township website at 4 p.m. on or about 4 p.m. on Friday prior to the meeting. Additionally, meetings scheduled are also noted on the website for the public to view. If you wish to receive notices by email, it is suggested that you include your email address with your mailing address and your phone number on the attendance sign-up sheet. Thank you. This meeting is declared concluded at 6:46. Pardon me. Obviously, spring has sprung. We're adjusting the temperature. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, our second public meeting this evening is a meeting to consider a zoning bylaw amendment application submitted by Rick and Agnes Cunin and Paul Frenza. The Planning Act requires under Section 34 sub 12 that before passing a zoning bylaw amendment, council must hold at least one public meeting for the purpose of informing the public in respect to the amendment. The purpose of this public meeting is to receive comments and answer questions from the public regarding the amendment to the Township of West Lincoln's bylaw. At this point, no decision has been made on the proposed amendment, and any comments received will be taken into account by staff and council in their considerations. The Planning Act also requires under Section 34 sub 13 that council advise the public that if a person and/or body does not make an oral submission at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of West Lincoln before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Township of West Lincoln Council to the Ontario Municipal Board. Madam Clerk, could you please advise of the method and dates by which notice was given to the public?
Proper notice was given by way of individual notice dated March 15, 2017.
Mr. Tribble, I believe we have you to explain the purpose and reason for this bylaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd be happy to go through this application as well. And once again, Madam Chair, if committee wishes to scroll to page 48,
Very good, Mr.
the drawing,
Tribble.
pardon me?
Very good.
The drawing might be of assistance, and I'm thinking perhaps for future applications, we'll have it available so that we can put it on the screen as well. We're starting to do this at Committee of Adjustment as well, where we use the screens, and it is working effectively. So this is another boundary adjustment, as I identified earlier, and this is probably, Madam Chair, more of a traditional type of boundary adjustment that you would anticipate. The existing small holding in this particular case is identified just to the right or east of Part 2, and includes an existing house and some accessory buildings, and about half an acre of land thereabouts. The proposal is to add Part 2 to the small holding, which is a long, narrow sliver that will be immediately parallel to the entire length of the small holding parcel. And then the farmland is the retained area identified as an area of 94,000 square meters, or about 9 hectares is what that relates to. So, Madam Chair, the effect of this application is to increase an undersized residential lot for the purpose of constructing a new dwelling on the parcel as well as a new septic system, and also recognizing another separation distance deficiency, a minor minimum distance separation requirement, to barns that are to the south and east of the small holding. There are some barns, and in fact there are measurements illustrated on the plan that's shown on that page. The existing house is deficient, the new house will be deficient, but the new house is not the closest house. There are 2 existing lots even closer to the barn that pose bigger restrictions to that farmer and that barn than the proposed dwelling on this small holding. So at the end of this process, Madam Chair, the similar result is a rural residential zoning with some exceptions to recognize a few deficiencies, especially separation distance deficiency to the neighboring barn, as well as a rezoning of the agricultural parcel to an agricultural A2 with an exception. There is already APO on this small holding. That APO will remain on the small holding. It'll just be taken off the sliver that's going to go to the residential. In addition, lot area and lot frontage of the farm parcel is deficient, but already deficient from the bylaw requirements as well. So we'll simply recognize the further deficiency should recommendation reports and approvals be considered by committee. You'll see a rezoning to RUR with exception and A2 with exception. That's it for now, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Tribble. Is Mr. Fraser, I believe that's the agent representing this application?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm here to certainly answer any questions committee may have. Mr. Tribble summarized the intent of the application fairly well, and there's concurrent, as probably the committee knows, there's concurrent minor variance application that is now final and binding, as well as a concurrent consent application to deal with the transfer of that sliver. So again, I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fraser. Members of committee, is there any comments or questions? Oh, I forgot the public, you're right. Thank you, Councillor Rayner. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak with regard to the zoning bylaw amendment? I'll ask one more time. Are there any members of the public wishing to make comment with regard to the application for zoning bylaw amendment by Rick and Agnes Cunin and Paul Frenza? Seeing none, I'll now ask Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the Director of Planning. Brian, did you just say you were taking a sliver of section of the land that's APO in perpetuity and bringing it out of in perpetuity in order to make this work?
Through you, excuse me, through you, Madam Chair, the portion of land that is to be added to the small holding requires the APO to be removed, and that is one of the instances for boundary adjustment purposes that we can entertain the removal of APO. It's about the only exception for the removal of an APO that I'm aware of right now, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to the Director. I've never heard of anybody doing anything with anything that's got an APO in perpetuity on it to this point. It's always been kind of signed, sealed, and delivered, cannot touch, do not disturb. This is the first time I've recalled any time where something like this was actually, I'm not against it, but it's the first time I've seen some flexibility with something that I thought was really cast in stone, or however you want to put it.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think it's fair, since we haven't seen many minor boundary adjustments in a while, that we haven't run across this example, but it is quite reasonable to consider this application in the fashion that we're entertaining it. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, it's because there is no new lot being created for residential purposes. The existing lot with the existing houses there, it's just deficient, and the farm parcel at the end of the day will still have APO. APO is only coming off that sliver. So at the end of the day, the intent of APO remains, and it's probably just one of the only ones we've had in a long time to deal with this kind of an application.
Thank you. Councillor Rayner?
Thank you to the Director. So this is really just to satisfy the housing situation and to put it into the legal requirements that it's supposed to be, and we can do that by taking some of the land that's right now on hold or frozen, shall we say, and moving it over in order to make this work. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, minor boundary adjustments really sort of need some technical, perhaps is the word to use, explanation or reason. And in this case, the lot, the small holding lot, is substantially undersized. So adding land to that lot for future septic purposes, and it so happens future residential purposes at the same time, is one of those technical reasons that you can entertain the addition of the small holding by minor boundary adjustment. Tends to have APO attached to that piece.
Right.
So it's just simply the next logical part of that process.
Right. Councillor Rayner?
Through you to the Director. So in this particular situation, because the property next door is also owned by the same family, this makes it practical and easy to work, where it may have been more difficult had it been owned by somebody else. It would have caused a lot more work, or it may not have worked at all. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, I think in this case we've only looked at the pieces of land in isolation of anything else. Yes, we know the Cunins are very large dairy farmers in the area, but this is a separate 9-hectare parcel of land, and it on its own is deficient. Removing that sliver and adding it to the farm or to the small holding doesn't really impact the value or viability of this
But
piece
it's
of
good
land.
that it's there.
It's
because
good that
it
it's
makes
there
it
for
work.
this guy, and it also is part of a viable farm, which is good for
Definitely.
agriculture in the
Yeah,
township.
there's no question about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Rayner. Councillor Trombetta?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is only 13 meters, right, Brian? To Mr. Director, right, 13 meters? The slip, 13 meters?
13.89, Madam Chair, yes.
I believe the resident is going to put geothermal, which is a cost-effective savings because the cost of propane is going through the roof. So anything to help the residents is always good. So I just wanted to clarify that this is the reason for the extra space is to put geothermal and a septic system on the property, correct?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Treble. Other members of committee? I'm looking both ways. All right. I say this to both the public and members of committee, that the opportunity to speak at a public meeting for both the public and members of committee occurs at this point in time, and that everyone should take note that the OMB may not consider comments made during the planning, building, environmental meeting any other future planning, building, environmental meeting and/or other council meetings regarding this application? Seeing none, no comments, I am going to say that, please be advised that this is a technical report that is being considered this evening by Planning Committee, and that a recommendation report will be forthcoming to a future Planning Committee and/or council. Please be advised that once the Planning Committee and council has made its decision with respect to this amendment, pardon me, and if approved by council, a notice of its passing will be circulated with an appeal period. There is an attendance sign-in sheet which is located on the table near the exit doors, which we would ask all present to sign. Please ensure that when signing the attendance sheet for this evening's meeting, that you place a check mark in the column marked Cunin Frenza if you wish to be advised of any subsequent meetings and/or decisions on this matter. Therefore, people who are interested in observing council and/or committee discussions about a particular bylaw should not solely rely on mailed notices and thus miss the opportunity to attend meetings. It is suggested that you watch the township's website for posting of agendas to review items that will be discussed at a council and/or committee meeting. The agendas for meetings are posted on the township website at approximately 4 p.m. on the Friday prior to the meeting. Additionally, meeting schedules are also noted on the website for the public to view. If you wish to receive notices by email, it is suggested that you include your email address with your mailing address and phone number on the attendance sign-up sheet. We will conclude this meeting at 6:58. Thank you. Okay, there are appointments. I believe there's an appointment by Jennifer Laking, Curbside Fries. Oh, okay. If you'd like to come forward to the microphone, give us your name and who you represent. Oh, my computer is restarting. I'd be happy to, we'll welcome you to the microphone. I'm going to need that in a minute.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Laking, owner of Curbside Fries. And 2 seasons ago, I purchased the fry truck in town, put a lot of savings, and also had acquired a large loan in which my mom helped me with. So she's also owner, but I'm the actual owner-operator. From what I understood, when we got licensed last year, there was a note that the owner needed to contact Chris to work out something to do with the property. That was my mistake. I didn't know that meant the owner of the truck. I was assuming it meant the owner of the property. So, because we really cleaned up the truck a lot and fixed it up tremendously. It looked like kind of like a biker stop. We made it more family friendly and just tried to clean it up and make it look better for the community. So we thought we had done our part of it and that things were going to be worked out with the property owner. So that's why a meeting with Chris didn't take place last year. We're right downtown. We have very good clientele. Last year we had a fantastic season. This year we wanted to even make some more changes and add more things around the truck and stuff. That's kind of been put on hold as the license is, I assume, going to be denied. I would like to continue serving the community. My mom and I were willing to work with the township, with you guys, and work out anything more that we can do, because we'd really like to stay in the spot that we're in. The truck's been there for a long time. It's pretty established in that spot, so moving the truck at this point in time is not really an option. So basically, sorry, I'm not very good at speaking in front of people. I'm a little nervous. So.
You're doing exceptionally well.
Yeah. So yeah, we would just like to know if there's anything else we can do to try to make it look more, I guess, the urban design you guys are trying to go for downtown. If there's anything more on our part we can do, like, with not being the property part or work with somebody. So that's basically all that I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Treble, when is this item, the renewal of this item, where is it?
Through you, Madam Chair, I believe it's the last staff report on the agenda tonight.
Yeah. Is it 140? Thank you. I actually have a hard copy because my computer has decided to have a break.
Yeah.
No, my computer works better there. Yes, it's on page 149. Thank you, Councillor Bell. And, okay, so we will be discussing this a little later on the agenda. It is one of the last reports on there. It's more appropriate for council and staff to speak to the item when we get there. So thank you for your presentation, and we'll move forward. All right, request to address items on the agenda. Is there anyone here wishing to address any items on the agenda? Mr. Rivers,
I guess this is the time I stand up and
this
say
would be
I'd
the
like to
time that
address-
you stand up, given you're not a deputation. That is correct. So please come forward to the microphone and indicate which item on the agenda you're wishing to refer to.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, councillors. Wish to address the zoning, or the report on the blocker, proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Sorry, I don't have the agenda in front of me to identify.
It's okay. We're going to find out for you.
It's item P44, starting on page 51.
There you are, members of committee. That is the item Mr. Rivers would like to address.
I'll try not to be repetitive. I was away this weekend introducing my 5-week-old grandson to his great-grandparents. This kind of went by the wayside.
Well, congratulations, but you're here now, so let's hear about it. Hope he's all well and his parents are doing well.
Everybody's as happy as can be. The home industry that's proposed on this site sort of expands the economic opportunities available to the residential use and the agricultural use of the property. The principal use, the agricultural use, and the residential use will continue. There's no change there. The home industry use will obviously be limited so that it doesn't expand beyond what's proposed and what is being considered. The majority of the property will still be in agriculture. The amount is something we'd like to discuss. It's a small parcel. It's 10 acres. And depending on this area to be rezoned, again, I'd say most of it will stay in agriculture. It's small scale. It's a secondary use to the principal use. It's compatible with surrounding agricultural uses. It satisfies the MDS. There's no potential impact as a result of new residential development. The new house on the property is already there, and it meets the MDS setbacks. It's not really anticipated to generate off-site impacts. The use, in essence, the workers come in the morning, they load the trucks up, and they go off-site to work. They come back in the evening, unload the trucks, and drive off in their cars. So there's no activity on the site that is going to have a negative impact on the significant negative impact on the adjacent property. It's going to be located in existing buildings, so there's no new buildings that are being proposed to be put up on the site. It doesn't require water and sanitary services beyond that which be expected in a normal residential use. The customers are all off-site, so there's no pedestrians coming back and forth from the site looking for product, and there are very few deliveries to the site. We've looked at other lands in the hamlets, in Fulton in particular, and I guess I can't show my pretty pictures tonight, but there's There are a couple of vacant parcels in Fulton, fronting right on Regional Road 20, but they're too small for the proposed use. The Regional Road 20 corridor is definitely a mixed-use corridor. And it's an area of mixed farm, residential, commercial, and industrial uses on a number of very small parcels. There's a tremendous amount of fragmentation of parcels along Regional Road 20 now, and this is one of those fragmented parcels that was essentially created with the hydro corridor to the north. In terms of the policies from the region that we're looking at dealing with, doesn't negatively impact the integrity of the agricultural area for farming. Basically, they put a house up and tore down some old, demolished some old barns that were in pretty bad shape, and are reusing, as they say, some of the existing outbuildings that were there. It's a creative reuse of unused agricultural buildings, which permits the retention of the elements of the rural countryside, again, without detracting from agriculture. It's compatible with surrounding farming uses. Again, the MDS satisfies the MDS, and there's not a creation of a lot of noise and traffic. Doesn't require significant improvements to infrastructure. The roads are there. There's no reason to put anything else in. All the infrastructure facilities are in place. It will occur on an existing lot. No new lots are being created, which is really I would say, the overarching rationale of the MDS and a lot of the thought behind the protection of agriculture. You're not bringing new use on a new lot. This is an existing lot that had a residential as of right, and we're looking at it as a secondary use to the residential and continuing of the agricultural use. So obviously a very small portion, very small agricultural use. Talking with the owners, the farmer who farms the property for them says he has to bring in smaller equipment than he would normally use. His larger equipment is just too big to actually turn around on the property. If he wasn't using smaller equipment, he probably wouldn't want to farm in the first place. No external advertising. The bylaw will see to that. It's not an obnoxious trade, business, or manufacture. In terms of the regional, and normally, often what we look at as planners and what the region looks at, and the type of things that you're brought to your attention are pretty constrained and very specific, very focused. Is there an agricultural impact? Is the house here going to affect the neighbor over there? So this time I like to expand the what we're looking at in the consideration, and really what we're looking here as in terms of the regional strategic objectives that are satisfied. It's diversified opportunity for employment locations. The region is looking now employment opportunities, employment locations outside the Welland corridor and the Niagara River corridor, and in their own estimate, there's a lack of employment locations. Certainly in Smithville, council has seen fit to develop a new industrial site. It's serviced. Putting a use that doesn't require services on a service site is not an efficient use of that land. And your opportunity to expand, as I understand, is constrained by prime agricultural land all the way around Smithville, transportation constraints, trying to get down the escarpment. So there's constraints that you have ahead of you, and I wish you good luck in solving those. The area is actually disturbed agricultural land where farming activities probably wouldn't be carried on and unless they're not adversely affected. What the operation is going to be placed on a parking lot that was it's been approved by the Conservation Authority outside its floodplain and watershed areas. But what was the operation is taking place in existing buildings and on the site where the demolished barn was. So it's, yes, you can rehabilitate that for agricultural uses, but it's a stretch on a small parcel like that to go to that kind of effort. We're looking, again, talk about the diversified employment opportunities. In terms of the township's considerations, again, we're looking at environment for sustainable agricultural-related activities. It's not necessarily an agricultural-related activity, but it's certainly a reuse of an underutilized parcel that would and underutilized buildings that would otherwise be left vacant and left to rot and ruin.
Mr. Rivers, we're,
Running short on time.
yes, and what I was hoping you would do is, I'm a little unclear.
Yes.
Are you speaking against are you hoping that we'll do something other than the recommendation where staff is saying this is okay for one business, and they'd like a little bit more agriculture? So I'm understanding that there was supposed to be some hobby crop or some trees. What is it that you're really asking us for?
I'll get to the point. Yes, we are supporting the staff's recommendation that this be for one business, not
Okay.
two as originally proposed. The staff report is recommending an area of approximately 1 hectare to be rezoned to accommodate the business. Mr. Treble and I had a bit of a discussion earlier today. The boundary of that 1 hectare was produced based on the region's satellite imagery, which is old. If we looked at the Conservation Authority satellite imagery, particularly with the location of the berm on the property, we need a little bit more than that 1 hectare. If it was to take in the berm and say go up to the edge of the Conservation Authority's permit, we're looking at about 1 acre and 3/4 instead of 1 acre. If you take the berm out so that it's not part of the
Calculation.
A special zoning, we're down to about maybe slightly over 1 acre, but it's that kind of wording that we need to work with the staff to deal with. The requirement that for the number of employees is something that we would like to examine a little bit further. The original application was looking at, our original consideration was for 2 businesses with 20 employees. We're now looking at 1 business with 10 employees plus the owners. Staff is recommending 7, so we'd like to maybe consider a somewhat larger number, up to 10 employees plus the owners. And then the operation that the owners be the farmers is something that certainly we would consider doing. I understand at the very least the owners would be expected to hire someone to come in and plant, then hire someone to come in and harvest.
Custom farming.
Custom farmer.
Right.
And then sell, and then they're responsible for selling the crop. The current situation, the farmer who farms land is getting it free. So changing it to require the owners to be the farmers is going to actually take away an opportunity from the existing farmer operation. And it's a region's concern as much as anything. They're the ones who are saying it has to be a farmer. I know the township's plan speaks to that as well. But again, we're looking at a policy document here. And every single policy doesn't have to be met exactly. It's, again, on the balance of considerations, is this a good idea? And I suggest to you that it is.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rivers. I believe, due to the nature of your comments, again, I'll refrain from having council comment on it at this point when we bring the item up if it's required. Mr. Treble can't explain the issue. We may return to you at that time. Thank you. Okay, so is there anyone else wishing to speak to items on the agenda? Seeing none, I'm going to move forward on the consent agenda, and there are 3 items on that. Recommendation report PD 057-17, street naming bylaws for Grant Street and Richard Crescent. Recommendation report PD 05017, amendment to the fire route bylaw at AT Realty Inc., Premier Equipment Limited, and a recommendation report number PD 055-17, disposal of obsolete and surplus assets. And the recommendation for those 3 items are that the Planning, Building, Environmental Committee hereby approve consent agenda items 1 to 3 to be received, and that the recommendations contained therein and are hereby adopted. I need a mover, Councillor Bell and Councillor Bilsma. Thank you. Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion carries. There are no communications, so we're moving on to staff reports. Item P42-17, which is a technical report regarding the zoning bylaw amendment for Douglas and Elsie Crown. File number 160102-17, that report PD 04617 regarding Douglas Crown and Elsie Crown, with Nikolai Dykstra as agent. File number 16010217 dated April 10th be received, and that the recommendation report be presented at a future Planning, Building, and Environmental Committee meeting. I need a mover for that. Councillor Bilsma, Councillor Gannan. Comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion carries. Okay, PD 43-17 is a recommendation report. That recommendation PD 04717 regarding Rick and Agnes Cunin and Paul Frenza, with Stephen Fraser as agent. Application for rezoning, file number 16010037 dated April 10th be received, and that a recommendation report be presented at the next Planning, Building, Environmental meeting once all agency and public comments have been released and reviewed. I need a mover. Councillor Gannan, Councillor Trombetta. Comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. P4417, that's a recommendation report with regard to Wes and Jacqueline Blocker. The recommendations are that PD 01917 regarding Wes and Jacqueline Blocker B-line trenching, application for rezoning, file number 1601-01016 dated April 10th be received, and that application for zoning bylaw amendment 1601-01016 submitted by Wes and Jacqueline Blocker B-line trenching be amended and approved in accordance with the attached amending bylaw, and that no further public meeting is required for the consideration of this bylaw in accordance with section 3417 of the Planning Act, and that a bylaw found at attachment number 1 to this report be approved, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to enter into a development agreement that will implement the zoning bylaw and replace the scale of the use. I need a mover and a seconder for Councillor Bilsma, Councillor Trombetta. Comments? Councillor Bell, and then I've got you two. Okay.
Through you, Madam Chair, I have a few actually.
You've got the floor, Councillor Bell.
I guess the first one is when you talk about the background, it makes it clear that when you talk about the added business to it, but not home industries. It's right in there. It says no home industries. It spells out what kind. The other part is the proposed home industries are existing businesses. And then it goes on to say in the next paragraph that the applicant's planning report indicates that they have worked within the local real estate agents to find alternate locations within West Lincoln, but have been advised that secure rental properties for commercial use in West Lincoln are very limited. So very limited means they are out there for whatever reason, they're not interested in them. There is an industrial park that their agent made reference to. I just don't believe where they're putting this is where it should be. It should be in the industrial park. And then on page 53, it talks about the applicant's agent has indicated in the planning justification report that in addition to the owners and operators, each business will have up to 10 employees in each field. He made reference that 7 is what staff is recommending, but he'd like to negotiate to have the 10 plus the 2 owners. You know, I think staff is making it clear in their recommendations that 7 is what it should be, and quite frankly, I think you should be happy with that if this should be approved. And going on to, my next one is on page 54, number 4. Alternate locations have been evaluated, and there are no reasonable alternate locations which avoid primary agricultural areas. There are no reasonable alternative locations in primary agricultural areas, low priority agricultures. Their planner made reference to that. Again, I'm not sure why they're not looking in the industrial park. For this business, they seem set on having this in an agricultural area, is the impression I'm getting from reading this. That's where they want to have it. They're not interested in looking anyplace else. And then, bear with me. 57, staff recommendations. You read, A, although the owners are, along with the representatives from the region, the NPCA attended a pre-consultation meeting which clarified the approval process to start this business. They ignored the direction even though they signed off on the pre-construct consultation forms. That speaks volumes to me right there. They were there, they were told how to go about bringing forth an application to the township and how to get this off the ground in the right fashion. He even signed off on it, indicating they understood what it was all about. And yet they went about and ignored it. They went out and started the business, and hence here we are tonight. The owners are not farmers. C is neither business serves the agricultural community. Okay, and D, upon building a new home, they deserve to keep the original, or desired to keep the original house as an office. They knew in the agreement that when they built the house that they had to tear down the existing house. They kind of bucked at it, but they did tear it down. And now they have a trailer in there with the permit. Section B, it talked about not more than 3 employees. The existing lot is entitled to a residence with the applicants to be permitted have a zone industry of not more than 3 employees based on the draft zoning bylaw. So if this gets approved before the new one comes in, we're willing to give them 7, but 3 will be the new one if I understand what's being said.
That is correct.
Then, as a result, staff is prepared to support a limited home industry use provided that more land be brought into production. The home industry is limited to the scale. The owner enter into a development agreement, site plan agreement with the township, and only 1 home industry is allowed. Finally, given the history of the operation, the development agreement shall collect and hold $5,000 security deposit for the life of the home industry or 20 years, whichever is greater. This deposit will be used to help ensure compliance of the property with the provisions of the site-specific zone. And I guess, you know, the conclusion is the purpose of 2 home industries on the subject lands appropriate? And it goes on, you know, I'm not going to read through them all. I guess for myself personally, it's all there, it's spelled out by staff, how it started and how we got where we are. They totally ignored it. And then it's the old scenario, they come up and they beg forgiveness. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that was supposed to do that. Yet quite clearly they were supposed to do it. They totally understood what they were supposed to do, and they totally ignored it. And yet now, staff is recommending that, oh, it's okay, we'll forgive you and we'll let you do this. For the record, I'm totally opposed to it. I will not be voting in favor of it. And we, we have rules, we have regulations. What do we have them for? We're not going to apply them. Some people it applies to and some it don't, so.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Mayor Joyner?
I thought you said Councillor Balsman was over there next, so probably. be one
Okay,
of the
no, it was you and Councillor Rayner, so I'll go to Councillor Rayner. Then I saw Councillor Bylsma left later, but I'll rearrange the schedule. Councillor Bylsma.
Bellsma, okay.
Bylsma, sorry,
Bellsma.
whatever.
Two birds with one stone, yeah.
Bylsma and Chichok, right?
Yeah, and Ganand. Anyways,
And
okay,
Ganand.
thank you very much. I'm just in a bit of a quandary. Well, no, not really. I'm in favor of proceeding with this recommendation. And I guess the quandary is, we have these, we've had a number of developments. Just bear with me for a second because I want to make a comparison. We've had a number of developments come into, as a result of our new urban boundaries, and the densities that we're told often the province is mandating is 85 people or jobs per hectare. And I always cringe, because to me, it's not the way that I'm wired. I like my space, but that's a personal opinion. The reality is we're not even meeting these targets often, even with the high density type housing that we do in this rural community. And then on the flip side, when it comes to a business, we have such a low, number, and there's a discrepancy that I feel if we're going to bring in the high type densities for our residential use, we're going to sell ourselves short in terms of providing a balanced community, which means that we have to attract businesses to this community. We have to do that at the same rate that we're getting all these houses, or we will be one of those unbalanced bedroom communities. We saw it happen in Mississauga. We see it happening in Binbrook, where the businesses are being
Give him a minute, Mr. Mayor.
the businesses are not keeping up with the amount of residences that are coming, especially with the high density. So I think we have to, in a sense, correct our understanding that we do need more businesses coming to our community, or at least the same rate that we're putting up the houses. So that's the one thing. So I have no problem with the 10 employee request or that. And then I guess finally, my final comment is and I've talked to the director of planning. We've also identified or made mention of the fact here in council or in planning committee that we're on the horns of a dilemma. We have this beautiful industrial park, but it's serviced beautifully, but those services come at a great cost. And there are many businesses that don't require a full service industrial park, with the corresponding taxes and development charges that come with such a site. So it becomes prohibitive for businesses that are, my understanding, looking just for a yard. They're looking for a secure place to store equipment for the night. They are looking for access to a main road so that they don't disturb any of the. So in that sense, our shortfall in that category is compelling us to, is creating a problem for us as well. There are no shortage of landscape companies and places that are looking for low services, and yet they want to come here and they employ people and they want to they're not objecting to paying appropriate taxes, but they don't need the full services. And so we've spoken about it before, that perhaps we should be looking at taking some of the hamlets and freeing up some lands for low service commercial slash I'm not going to say industrial, but some commercial uses. Highway 20 as a highway is ideal for such types of uses. And the property in particular, I think is looking wonderful compared to the way that it looked only 3 years ago. It's cleaned up. Some of the eyesore buildings have been removed, and I think it's very appropriate to have a business that's employing 10 people come to our community and utilizing what I think is a low-value piece of agricultural property as best as they can. It'll still retain its agricultural nature. As we heard, there's going to be exceptions to be made because of the small size of it, and yet the general principle is to bring in a better valued use of the land that we have in West Lincoln. So those are my 3 comments,
Thank you,
saying
Councillor
that I'm in
Bilsma.
support.
Thank you, and you've identified your support. Okay. I would have to add you, yes. I've got Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree a lot with what Councillor Bilsma said with regards to employment figures. I thought we were trying to bring more employment into the township, and if I'm not mistaken on this, it sounds like the township is restricting the employment on somebody who wants to bring more people in, which is kind of like the opposite of what I thought we were trying to achieve, because that's an important part of this township, is not only to grow with the residential, but to have the commercial and industrial follow, because that's a huge part of the tax base that makes it more viable for the people who live here to pay less taxes. So I understand the need for regulations and all that, but I've never heard it before being restricted on the amount of employees. I thought what we want industry to do in this town is to grow, and in order to grow, you have to have more employees. So based on that, I support this in the sense that this is an opportunity for something that can help us to increase employment here, but I would also like to see that number of 10 be kept, because I want to promote that opportunity for more employment in this town. I don't want the township to be labeled as restrictive employment for something that's a very big part of what makes the tax base work in this municipality. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Rayner. Mayor Joyner, are you? Well, actually, it's Councillor Ganaan. It's after. So you'll have to wait. He seems to be not ready at the moment. So Councillor Ganaan, the floor is yours.
All right, I'll be happy then to take over.
I just want it noted for the record that I'm not bumping you down artificially, Mayor Joyner. So well, you actually, forget it. Let's go. Councillor Ganaan, you have the floor.
Thank you. It's okay now, right? Good.
It's yours.
Thank you. I just also want to support what's going on with this. I agree with Councillor Bilsma. I've been driving back and forth on that highway for the 45 years that we've lived out here, and that piece of property has been a mess for a great many years. I was interesting to hear the berm thrown into the mix when you were talking about measuring the size, because the fact that that berm is there totally cleans up that area and makes it look presentable. There are many other properties along the highway that I wish had a berm to cover some of the things that are there, but that remains another day. I do think that the Blockers have good intentions about keeping that property tidy and looking after it. I'm impressed when I go by whatever time of day that even the cars that come in are lined up very nicely. I mean, it's all kept neat and tidy, and I think that we should be looking as it being a positive use of that land, which has not been well used for a good chunk of time. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Ganaan. Councillor Trombetta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been out to the site, met with Mr. Volker. Yeah, it's enclosed by berms, and he's got a business that he's wants to park equipment and hide behind the berms and keep it pretty safe at night. They're going to meet there and go to their sites in the morning. 10 employees. I understand there were 7, but I understand sometimes in the summer months you can always hire casuals because you get busy in the summer and you might need some extra employees. So I understand where the 10 comes from. Volker is in here bringing his business forward, keeping us aware of what's going on. You know, there's many businesses out there in the municipality that are hidden, that don't have, you know, have not come forward and that are processing on their properties and, you know, don't have the right zoning. And Mr. Volker is here and he's doing his due diligence now, and I'm not going to hold him to that. And I think he's done his work with some speed bumps. He's in here now, and like I said, we know about it. I don't have a problem with it on Highway 20. There's other businesses that are doing similar, not similar, but there's other businesses along Highway 20 that are all over along the stretch. So I don't have a problem with it. He's went through some speed bumps, and he's here now, and he's trying to make amends and trying to get this forward so he can get to work. So I don't have a problem with it, and just want to make that note, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trombetta. Mayor Joyner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for letting me go last. If I could, through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Treble. Mr. Treble, can you please remind Council what is the recommendation here, point by point?
Through you, Madam Chair, can I start with just a little bit of context, if possible?
Well, Mr. Treble, you did want to speak, and I was
Yes.
leaving you till the end of council, but since, yes, this would be the appropriate time for you to interject your comments and then go to the recommendations.
I think, and you can probably tell by the report, staff have struggled with this application. On one hand, I think it's safe to say that we understand the fact that a 10-acre, 4-hectare parcel is limited in its ability to be a productive or viable, whatever word you want to use, agricultural parcel on its own. But on the other side, the policies in the agricultural area are really to be available to the farmer to help supplement their income, and the blockers, by their own admission, are not farmers. So I'm attempting to apply policy to a situation that doesn't fit perfectly into the mold. That said, I think we all know that 777 Bay Street doesn't necessarily get it right for everybody.
No.
But that's the policy context I'm set to work in. And in the absence of Councillor Rayner, who doesn't appear to have shown up tonight, forgive me, agricultural land is not urban land in waiting. It's meant to be available for agricultural purposes. And so I get the context of business. We need the business. The industrial park is really where certain scale and size of industry should be situated. But there's two policy sets in the agricultural area that allow us to entertain businesses in the agricultural area. One are businesses that add value to the farming operation, and the second are businesses that supplement a farmer's additional income, and they don't necessarily have to be related to agriculture. So this fits into the second scale of category. The value added doesn't work, but the on-farm diversified, as it's officially known, is the policy set that does work. And so the home industry is the best fit within there, and scale and scope and limitations on its ability to grow are what usually apply in the agricultural area. And at a certain point, that business arrives at a size where it should be in the industrial park, just based on the number of employees. We want all businesses to grow, but once they get to a certain size, the industrial park's the more appropriate location for them. And the policy's kind of written in that context. Leave agriculture alone and let agriculture flourish there. And it's not the place where urban uses should creep in, and hence the dilemma that we're dealing with here. So what I've attempted to do, Madam Chair, in response to the Mayor's question, is I've attempted to put a bylaw in place that says, although this guy isn't a farmer, as much as possible of this land has to be made available and used for agricultural purposes. That then gives some viability to the concept or the thinking that we've put into the rest of the bylaw. The next step then is to somehow consider what the type of use is, and so we've called it a home industry, but it doesn't fit perfectly within the home industry category, mainly because of the number of employees. The bylaw is originally going to contemplate 3, so if we had the new bylaw in place in a couple of months' time, Mr. Blocker would be entitled to have a business with 3 people if he was a farmer. So I've really sort of built on that to say, okay, in this case, he wants 10, you can have 3. I sort of sawed it off the middle and said, I think I can maybe live with 7, but I walked out on a branch and the region wasn't coming behind me for a while. But I do have the region on board with the draft model bylaw that I've put in the report. So I don't know if that helps answer the mayor's questions, but I've attempted to write it to say, okay, agriculture is priority on this parcel, but we will allow for some supplementary business activity, income, whatever word you want to use, in the form of a home industry with limitations to size and scale, so that we can, at the end of the day, argue that this is still principally an agricultural parcel. The province's rule of thumb is that you should have no more than 2% of a parcel in terms of area taken out of agricultural use for some other purpose. If we're talking a 10-acre parcel, taking 1 acre out is technically 10%. So we're way above the province's guideline, but in this situation, given the fact that it's not really a viable agricultural operation, I felt there was a basis to argue that 10% made sense, and hence how I landed where I have.
Thank you, Mr. Treble. Mr. Mayor, does that answer your question regarding the intent of the recommendations?
It answers my questions, and it makes it much more clear as to how I wish to comment on this proposal. So if I may, Madam Chair.
Please.
So thank you. So, Mr. Treble, thank you for your comments. I am not in favor of this for many reasons that Mr. Treble just described. It's not personal. It's just that I believe that you're very much, in even going out on the limb that you've gone out on, Mr. Treble, you're very precedent-setting in this municipality. And I foresee many, many more applications coming forth, and this being the groundwork for their discussion and building of their argument to go forward with what they want to do. I very much agree with many of the comments that Councillor Bell made across the table there. I'm getting a little upset with people coming forward and doing what they want to do and begging for forgiveness. And at this time, I think that this township has grown up enough that we don't have to accept that anymore. It is up to the people to understand what they're doing when they go forward and spend the money in hopes of what they're trying to do. And at this point in time, I dare to say that I want employment in this township as much as the next person. I believe that we do need employment, but I believe that the place for this type of employment, much the same as the type of trenching employment that already exists in our industrial park, is in our industrial park. Straight up, 100%. So I will not be voting in favor of this, even though this is what I perceive as being somewhat of an olive branch. I don't think this is what the applicant is looking for anyway, so I would suggest that council vote this down and then have the applicant start over and look at the proper spot, which is in the industrial park. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Joyner. Okay, so I am going to make a few comments, and I hope the committee will indulge me, and I will say that they have had a pre-con and now they're here. And applying provides them with the opportunity to remedy a situation that is out of character with the zoning, perhaps. I don't think that we've opened the gate with this particular approval. In fact, I think we opened the gate with another approval of another property not that long ago. Mr. Treble, you can probably help me with the name on that application, but that's not what was that application? There was an application that was similar to this.
There are two that have recently been considered by committee. The one on 20 Road, is that the
Correct.
one you're alluding to?
Yes.
So Certain Things Holdings, I believe, was the
Yes.
ownership name.
So in fact, this isn't the first time we've had exceptions and or seen this kind of thing happen. Back a number of years ago, when we were forced to try and settle an OMB hearing, and we took away the opportunity for development in hamlets when we moved it into town, we curtailed opportunities for these types of industries to occur in what were established hamlets throughout the township that offered those employment opportunities for rural members of our community to have that same opportunity to live and work in the same community without the long commute to somewhere else. So in fact, that may have been oversight in the day, and that it's a decision that in the next round of growth we might want to reconsider, but it's certainly not something that we shouldn't at least review. I think that in a farming community, we need to pay very strict attention to what it is that we're chastising people here because they didn't play by the exact rules, but they are here. So I'm not going to act as judge and jury. But, you know, many people farm in this community and across Ontario by custom farming. So how you label a farmer is not necessarily by the fact that he rides his tractor, but the fact is, and readily so, thank goodness that some people do want to farm, and as people age, another person will plow and plant, and, excuse me, if we could just, I could have the floor. Okay. If you want to have custom farming done as you age, or because equipment is now available for rent, and you plant and you harvest, if you want to exchange checks back and forth, I'm not sure what you consider a farmer, but I do know what Revenue Canada and others consider it. So I think we need to open our minds to how farming is going in this community. Many farms are rented and many farms are customed. So it's something that we better all understand as we move forward. So this is no easy win. And I think I want to commend our staff for taking an opportunity to look at this and trying to come up with something that could work. Did we give Mr. and Mrs. Blocker everything they wanted? Obviously not. Their planner says we didn't. Did we try and remedy something that takes a piece of land that could sit idle or might be custom farmed or might be farmed by someone else? Don't know. But I certainly think that I do want to commend staff for the attempt they've made to align with the policies that are in place by Places to Grow. And I do hope that 777 Bay Street does look into things like this as we move forward. So with that, those are my comments. And seeing no others, I will, this item is on the table, properly moved and seconded, so I am going to ask for the vote now. Yes, I figured I was going to get that. So, Madam Clerk, if you could undertake a recorded vote at the request of Mayor Joyner, just under the wire. Councillor Rayner.
No, it's better to be there than miss the wire.
That's, you're absolutely right. So please proceed.
Of course, then there's a songbird on the wire, but.
Is it by the Monkees or?
No, that was Leonard Cohen.
Okay, fine.
Move from Madam Chair over to the Director of Planning. You are comfortable with this recommendation of doing what you said you want to do, even though you are upholding, and I appreciate and respect the fact that you are trying to retain this 10-acre field in agriculture. I wish we had the same sort of drive for the 60 acres being destroyed on the Northwest Quadrant, but that's another
Okay,
discussion.
Councillor Rayner, this is not the point at which we should bring that in. I understand.
But we're butchering 60, but somehow we're
Councillor
okay
Rayner,
with 10.
on this
Mayor's not
item.
okay with
I
10,
hear
but it's
you.
okay with 60.
I hear
I
you.
don't get this. This to me is two-faced. I'm confused.
On this issue only, Mayor Joyner, and if it's regarding the secondary plan for the Northwest Quadrant, let's leave that for another night.
Well, it's just simply to state that one piece of property is adjacent to the urban boundary and another piece of property is nowhere near the urban boundary.
Thank you.
That is the distinction.
Thank you, Mayor Joyner. Okay, so we're going to go, no, I'm going to call it quits. We've got the item on the table. We've been asked for a recorded vote. With regard to this item, Councillor Rayner, out of an abundance of caution, because is it relevant or can we move forward?
It's relevant to me.
Okay, but please know that if it gets irrelevant, I may,
You may do
Thank you.
what you have to do as chairman. All I can say is, I understand what the mayor has said, but agriculture in production adjacent to urban or 50 miles away from urban is still agriculture. That's all I want to say.
Madam Chair,
okay.
can we call the vote?
I was just going to, excuse me, I was just conferring with the clerk. The report is there. Everyone has read it. The proposed bylaw is there. That's where everything is coming from. If anyone needs clarification,
Please call the vote.
you should have read it before this. Okay. No, this is yours.
Yes. Counselor Fowl?
Opposed?
Counselor Bilsma?
In favor.
Counselor Ganam? In favor. Counselor Rayner?
In favor.
Counselor Trombetta?
Support.
Mayor Joyner?
Opposed.
Counselor Joanne, or
Counselor Joanne. See, it's not just you, Counselor Bilsma. But it's okay. That's right, I have to vote because it's a... That's okay. I do have to vote as a recorded vote. I vote in favor.
5 in favor, 2.
Okay, that item wins in favor, the vote 5-2. Thank you. I am going to move on to the next item, which is item, it's such a letdown after an item where there's been a lot of discussion, but there's really nothing more to do with item P44-17. We're on to item P45-17, which is a recommendation report with regard to a pre-servicing agreement for 209-0754 Ontario, the proposed car wash. And the recommendations are that PD 05117 regarding authority to sign a pre-servicing agreement with 209-0754 Ontario, proposed car wash dated April 10th, 2017 be received, and that a bylaw be adopted to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign a pre-servicing agreement with 209-0754 Ontario, Inc. I need a move. Councillor Trombetta, Councillor Bilsma. This is now a request to speak. Great. The item's on the table, and Councillor Trombetta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Mr. Treble. So I read this. We're asking to extend the services so we can put a car wash. That's pretty much what's going on here, correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, the whole of the secondary plan ultimately needs to be serviced. So this is kind of step one because they're the first past the post, so to speak.
So they're extending stormwater sanitary to just, I'm kind of confused with this. Just give me more detail on it.
Through you, Madam Chair, the region is undergoing some improvements on West Street or Regional Road 20 as we speak. King Construction is doing works to get the road ready for the St. Martin's School. And part of that is a crosswalk at the intersection. So the region, and it actually makes sense, and it's coming out of the region's mouth, they are saying that before they put the crosswalk in, they'd like to make sure the services underneath that crosswalk are there so that they don't have to rip the crosswalk up to allow for extension into the northwest quadrant down the road. So I believe we're focused right now on sewer and water, and it's to get them through the intersection for the time being, and that's the only part the pre-servicing really applies to, through the intersection before we have any sort of a site plan approval in place, just so that we don't have to rip it up after King Construction's done and gone.
So, Mr. Treble, go one step further, and this is no advantage asked for by the car wash. They still need to go to a full site plan approval subsequent to this.
Through you, Madam Chair, that is correct. The report is written to indicate that this is to get that piece of the puzzle out of the way. Clearly on the applicant's part with a hope and aspiration and probably some crossed fingers and toes that this will all result in a positive outcome in the end, but it's not the process of the site plan approval. That has to go through its own process, and that's partly written into the report and will be part of the agreement as well, just so that fair process can occur,
right.
But we've got the servicing figured out before we get into a bind, and we've got new paving over top of the intersection.
So I know you don't have a crystal ball, but these are for new things to be coming forward in the near future. So we're starting with a car wash, and people are going to be proposing future things in obviously the future to come, correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, the secondary plan, I'm hoping will be back before committee as early as May the 8th. That might be wishful thinking, but that's kind of our staff goal right now. And we'll have a better idea of what kind of uses at that point. But keep in mind the Northwest Quadrant on a whole is meant to be mainly residential in its focus, and we're talking probably somewhere in the range of close to 700 housing units at the end of this process. So, the other piece of the puzzle, I guess, is that any of the commitments that are made by this particular developer can be offset through best efforts clauses if there's benefit to be gained by others through this process as well. So those kind of discussions would be more typical to the site plan process, where we can have those discussions in terms of what costs should be recouped, if any. But we're trying to keep the improvement through the intersection to the minimum needed to get the pipes out of the way so that the crosswalk can happen. And whether this benefits all growth in the northwest quadrant or just the car wash, we're not even sure on that piece just yet, because there's a lot of detailed design work that has to happen to get the whole of those 700 units on stream.
Well, okay. Thank you, and it's good that we're getting another car wash back in this town, hopefully in the near future. We lost the one.
I've gone through about 10 puddles. I can show you where they are.
Well, it's just good that we have something good to look forward to and come forward. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Trouble.
Mayor Joyner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Mr. Trouble. I just want to go through the overview real quick here. I mean, it's the first bullet, actually. It says development in the Northwest Quadrant secondary plan area is not yet to the point of approval since a final secondary plan has not been endorsed by Town Council. A recommendation report is anticipated in May of 2017. Cross our fingers. My question to you is, why is those two pieces of property under the secondary plan when there are already existing businesses on those two properties?
Through you, Madam Chair, it's an interesting question. The lands on the north side of Highway 20, and I guess the simple answer is the lands on the north side of Highway 20, so the lands in question plus these 700 housing units that are yet to come, they were all outside the urban boundary.
That's right.
So Strong's Auto and any of that stuff, including the Greek Community Center, was all unserviced prior to today because we couldn't service beyond the urban boundary. So they're part of the secondary plan because that's how we brought them in. The unique situation is that they have proper zoning in place. So that's partly the dilemma we have, in the sense that there's zoning to say that the car wash can go, but the secondary plan is not there yet. So, you know, yeah, exactly. We're trying to get things to mesh together properly, and not give undue delay, although Mr. Owen might say that we've already done that. Not trying to give undue delay, but at the same time not trying to pressure everybody into getting to a solution that doesn't work. We're trying to get the best solution. That's why the secondary plan isn't yet before you for approval.
So, thank you for that answer. So I totally agree with the region, and it makes sense that we go ahead and we do this so we don't have to put the pipe in, lay the asphalt, tear out the asphalt, and that's when people get really upset because they see us doing duplication and tax dollars not being spent very well. But my question is, though, is that, can you walk me through, and I know you're the Director of Planning, not the Director of Public Works, but do we not know what this actual piping, if it's appropriately put in size for the car wash and any other institutions or the 700 houses in that area? Like, obviously, we're not just putting piping in there for the sake of putting piping. We know what it's going to service, do we not?
Through you, Madam Chair, at a very high level, we know. You'll recall back to the swap studies when we had AMIC, specifically Paul Smeltzer and Bill Brooker on behalf of AMIC and the township, putting together at a high level what they thought the servicing requirements were. And that included some upgrades to piping. And at the end of the day, they recommended to us that this area was cheaper to service than the area towards the Leisureplex that was the other option to bring in. So we know at a high level that these lands are serviceable, but we don't have any detailed engineering design as of yet, save and except for Mr. Owen's piece. Mr. Owen has designed that he can get his car wash serviced into that sewer pipe by means of a force main, I think is the proper term. And so that's the piece we're focused on right now. And the issue or the discussion that our Director of Public Works is having is to make sure the size under the crosswalk is sized for whatever future growth occurs in that intersection, plus accommodates the car wash as sort of step one.
Okay.
So, sorry, it's not a simple answer because we've got high level but not the detailed design yet.
Those are all my questions for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Trumbull.
Just to add to what the mayor just said, yeah, usually when it's designed this stuff, it's usually designed to, it's an outlet, so everything will flow to the to that direction. So it's sized accordingly to prepare for the future. So it'll be oversized, and then obviously they reduce and then flow down. So thank you, Madam Chair.
No problem, Councillor Trombetta. Mayor Joyner, for a
Thank you.
second time.
For a second time, thank you, Madam Chair. So just to clarify, Mr. Treble, what you're saying is that if Mr. Rowan is okay with upfronting the money for the servicing, during the site plan process, it could be put in, the language could be as such as that any other business or development or institution that feeds into that will then have to reimburse the applicant? Is that what you meant by what you said earlier?
I don't think we're front-ending this, but Mr. Treble?
Okay, I'm just looking for clarification.
Through you, Madam Chair, even as of right now, we don't even know the cost of what this piece is going to be, although I understand from speaking to Mr. Owen that he's anticipating an answer on the cost in the next couple of days. Should there be others that benefit from this piece of pipe, a clause called a best efforts clause has been added to other agreements in this town, and I think in all fairness is something that could be entertained here. But we don't even know what the cost is yet. Like if it's only $10,000, it may not be anything to get worried about, but if, you know, I think the whole cost of the servicing from the car wash proposal to this pipe was estimated at one point at being about $100,000. And this is only a tiny portion thereof. So one would assume it's not a very big number, but we'll have those discussions, I think, at the site plan process, which is where they would normally unfold.
That's what it would normally occur. Okay. Mayor Joyner, you still have the floor.
Thank you. And it's actually a question and a comment for Mr. Owens. So obviously, Mr. Owens, we're voting on something here today, which is committee, and asking you to, in good faith, because you've said that you agree with this. Is it possible for you to come back with us with a number before we actually
Mayor Joyner,
ratify this at council?
Mayor Joyner, we don't go directly to the applicant at this point in time. You should be talking to the director. If Mr. Owens has a problem with this, it should have come out before we bring this item forward. So if you want to take caution, Mr. Owen is appropriately notified and is aware of the cost.
So let me rephrase that. Mr. Treble, will we know the number before we vote on this at the end of this month at council?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll do everything I can to share what I find out with council.
Okay, thank you.
So for the benefit of council, we are putting this in place. We are asking for approval to go forward with it in an agreement. At this point in time, the obligation for payment regarding this, could you just go on to that so all of committee understands what it is that we're undertaking, what Mr. Owens or any other applicant in such a state would be undertaking? So who pays for what?
The request, through you, Madam Chair, the request at this point in time is for Mr. Owens to front end whatever piece of pipe is needed to get through the crosswalk.
Right.
So that we don't have to rip that up again. The actual cost of that is not known today, but I think will be known in a couple of days. And as I say, if it's an unreasonable number that will benefit others, then we should have discussions around who should ultimately pay. But for now, Mr. Owen has agreed to pay that cost so that he can get moving with his project as part of the whole package.
So estimated engineering costs, et cetera, are Mr. Owen's responsibility or any other applicant that comes forward, and if he's aware of what it is it's going to take to go forward. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just saying it's not really our place, and if Mr. Owen signs a front-ending agreement where we have best efforts, which means all we'll do is try and collect from anybody who benefits.
This is unique in the sense that the crosswalk is coming first. If
Understood.
the crosswalk wasn't on the table right now, these discussions wouldn't even have to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay? That was the point I was trying to get out there. I just don't want to put our foot into someone else's responsibility. I apologize. Okay. Other comments? Thank you. Seeing none, the recommendation on this report, which has been duly moved and seconded, is on the table now, and I will ask all in favor. That motion carries. Okay, so with regard to item P4617, which is the report regarding new swimming pool bylaws, the recommendation on that report is that report PD 05617 regarding new swimming pool bylaw be received, and that the proposed draft swimming pool bylaw be approved at the April 24th council meeting and shall be in full force and effect commencing May 1, 2017, and that staff be and are hereby authorized to submit a short form wording found at Schedule B of the bylaw to the Attorney General for approval. I need a mover. Councillor Bell, thank you. Councillor Gannon, is your hand up? Okay. I need a seconder on this motion. Councillor Trump, you were first. Thank you so much for doing that. Now, we have opportunity for discussion. Now your hand is up.
Now my hand is
Councillor
up.
Gannon, what would you like?
Now my hand is up because I want to ask about seasonal pools. So through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Treble. There are seasonal pools that are 5 feet tall and have 4.5, 5 feet of water, whatever, and they stand alone. So therefore, they could pay your permit fee, you could have somebody come and look at that before you put water in. But there are also seasonal pools that are just blow up the ring and fill with water, that a lot of people have, and there is absolutely no way, I just see a can of worms here, because there's no way that that could be inspected in any way prior to the water going in. And there's a fine if you fill with water, according to these new bylaws, there's a fine if you fill with water before somebody's checked out your pool. So I'm just wondering if I've missed, and maybe I have, some other details about what particular type of seasonal pools.
Through you,
You're
Madam,
looking at.
through you, Madam Chair, I'm not going to be the one that's well versed in this bylaw, but the essence of the bylaw is to start recognizing those very types of pools. The old bylaw didn't really contemplate any of that kind of stuff, first of all. And second of all, the permitting process is laid out much clearer in here in terms of the fact that there's a permit required, but it's not an annual renewal each time they put it up each season kind of concept. The concept of the definition of a swimming pool is identified on page 78 of the entire document and spells out that a pool is anything with over 2 feet of water in it by definition in this draft document that's before council. So we'll know the depth of the pool based on the specifications on the box or, whatever it is that you're dealing with, and presumably that would then be the trigger to determine whether or not fencing is required. And the biggest issue with the bylaw normally is just the fencing requirements, the fencing and the locking mechanisms to ensure that if there is a pool that's constructed, if it doesn't have adequate walls in the pool for height, then they're going to have to fence that pool and ensure that it's safely out of the reach of kids and others who might think it's a place to go and get into trouble. So the goal is effectively to try and deal with those very pools and spell it out in the bylaw and ensure that proper fencing is around it and we're not going crazy on the permitting fees.
So all pools with more than 2 feet of water, it must be in a fenced area with proper locking mechanisms. Elsewise, if we're talking about a blow-up pool, 12 inches, 8 inches where they sit
Then that's not
and the
triggered.
kids drink beer or whatever.
There you
For
go.
not knowing a lot, you came along swimmingly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Gannon.
However,
I had to do that.
Thank you. But I just think before we get too far along with this, we need to really have a clear idea, because it wasn't the fact that we're looking to put permits on those or that they should be fenced accordingly. My concern is the $200 issue if you put water in before it's been inspected, which is another part of that. I lost the place right now. But essentially, it says that somebody needs to come. If I come, for example, to the township and I pay my permit fee, then somebody has to come and look at that pool before I put water in it. But some of those seasonal pools are held up by the water. Like, there would be absolutely nothing to inspect because it's the water going in that floats that upper ring that makes that flat thing into a pool. And we have those dotted all over the township. In fact, they're dotted all over everywhere. There are other seasonal pools. My brother has one, for example, in Hamilton that stands perfectly straight all by itself with the supports all the way around it that could be looked at ahead of time to make sure it was level before water went in. But I just see that we're going to maybe open a can of worms here by somebody tattling on somebody else. This pool is in and it hasn't been inspected. And how do you inspect something before you put water in it when it's water that supports the pool? Does that make sense? I
think I understand your chicken and egg, yes, for a 4-foot pool that's above ground and is tension
It's just
erected
strictly
because of the water.
tension. You put air in that upper ring and you put water in and it stands up and you have a pool.
But through you, Madam Chair, I think though we should know in advance, almost any of us should know in advance whether or not it's going to be a 4-foot pool or a 2-foot pool or less. And if it's more than 2 feet, it needs a permit. If it's less than 2 feet, it doesn't.
It's more the inspection. I'm going to find the part.
It's down, I just found it.
Did you find it? Thank you.
But I lost it again.
Is it page 91 or in the actual bylaw?
Yeah, as I read through it, I was perfectly fine with it until I got to enforcement. I'm sorry, but in
It's
any case.
application in 1 point, hang on a second. It says that this bylaw shall apply equally to all types of swimming pools, including above ground, in ground, and seasonal swimming pools unless otherwise stipulated in this bylaw.
It was under the fines and things
Yeah.
for,
Permits.
maybe it was on the schedule of fines. Well, anyway, I apologize. I should have written down where that was. Oh, there, okay, page 91, I think is where I'm looking. Set fines in short form wording. So erect a swimming pool without required permit, the fine would be $200. Placement of water prior to approval, $200. So even if, in other words, if you came and you paid your $75 to have that put up, then you can't put water in it until somebody has approved it. But there's nothing to approve until it has water in. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think you're getting perhaps, through you, Madam Chair, a bit too technical. They come to the counter, they get their permit, they go home and they build the pool. Effectively, that's all there is to it. And then they do the fencing requirements, and then Jeff is called out to inspect it all at the end of the process. So as long as they've got that permit, $75 or whatever the dollar value is, then they can go home and do the work. If they don't have a permit, that's when they run the risk.
But it's placement of water prior to approval.
I understand.
Okay, I give up. Thanks.
Item 3, table B111.
Talk offline.
Councillor Trombetta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I got a lot of questions about this, and I don't know if it needs to go back to staff or not, but I'm going to start with a few things because, you know, they built these pools. Walmart, Canadian Tire have these pools. Pay $200 to put up a pool. Some of these properties don't even have the capacity to put a fence around. They have enough room just to walk outside and put a pool there. So where the fence comes into place, what happens to an in-ground pool? Does it need a fence around it? People are walking out from a patio, going to having a concrete patio and into an in-ground pool. I understand fences around the property, but is this stating fence around? This is where I'm getting a little confused here. Is it a fence around a pool that already has a fence around it?
No.
Because I know neighboring municipalities have tried bringing this forward, and it has not been passed because they've said they wanted fences as soon as you come out to, let's say, an in-ground pool, to a patio, and then another fence around that, which I've known they've changed that in neighboring municipalities. But I'm kind of confused, through you, Madam Chair, to the Director. What are we asking for?
Through you, Madam Chair, this requires a minimum height fence around the area where the pool is located. So it's not requiring the pool to be fenced inside a fenced backyard. If the backyard is fenced so that the public cannot obtain access to the backyard, then that is the fence for the pool, as long as it's adequate height.
Okay, now that's starting to make more sense, because what I'm hearing is that any, needs a fence around it. So that's where I was taking it.
No, so, but the back, through you, Madam Chair, the backyard has to be completely enclosed. So, you might have a perimeter fence, but they'll have to add a piece between the fence and the wall of the house on each side or whatever to sort of block off both side accesses to make it, exactly, thank you, Mr. Cielo, to make it secure.
Those are the questions I had. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You had a lot of questions. That's it? Okay, good. All right. Councillor Bell. Yes, I know. I saw your hand.
Through you to the Director, in other municipalities, when somebody wants to put a pool in, whether it be in-ground, on-ground, half-in, a plastic pool, whatever it is, okay, the 2-foot ones, they've got pool regulations they've had for as old as dirt. Point is, you call your city hall, town hall, whatever, say, I want to put a pool in, what have I got to do? Most people ask that question. They say, come down and get a permit, and we'll give you some guidelines when you get here. I mean, all of these are nice questions, they're all great questions, but the point is, if somebody's going to put a pool in, they're going to come over here to get the permit, and they're going to be given a document with some quick guidelines. A, what type of pool is it? You're going to need a fence. The fence has to go around, either your property or the pool, whichever you choose. It's not going to be a fence on a fence. And I know what Councilor Trevetta said, yeah, they looked at that a couple of times in different municipalities. You got a pool, you want a fence separating your pool so it's enclosed by itself. That's a personal thing right now. It's not enforceable at this point in time.
No, it isn't.
But I think, you know, these are all great questions that's being asked, but the short of the story is that they're gonna come here and they're gonna get the permit, be given a document that says, here's the rules and regulations that you must meet. And they're gonna have to go home and read them. If they got any further questions, they're gonna have to ask. But we can't write an idiot-proof bylaw for every scenario. Because, I mean, my grandkids come out, they get a little wading pool that's like 10 inches deep, you know? So, anyway, that's
Okay.
just my comments. I don't
Thank
think we
you.
need to rewrite it.
Thank you, Counselor Bell. So real simple. This is a fence permit bylaw. This is a pool bylaw. Causes a fence. The process is you come in and you don't pay, you pay in money. If it's under 2 feet, you don't need a permit. If it's over 2 feet, you need a permit. If you get the permit, go home and do what you have to do to put up a pool, regardless of the type. And if you put water in it to inflate it, or whatever, support it, then you call you call the CBO and he comes out and takes a look at it.
I see the point that Councillor Ganan is raising. I think, you know, common sense or logic would come into play in terms of seeing how it works. And I'll have a discussion with the chief building official in the morning about that scenario. But as I see it, you know, this isn't really anything different than we've been doing all along. It's just a bylaw that makes this much more clear, contemplates the different types of pools that haven't been in the old bylaw, and gives us a fine structure so that we can penalize people that, you know, have contravened the bylaw for inappropriate reasons without having to go to court like we do under the current bylaw. So there's kind of 3 pieces to this, but we do have a bylaw in place right now, so we treat it no differently than we have historically in my mind.
Okay. Counselor Rayner.
Thank you. Through to the director. Is there a reason why this is based on 2 feet and deeper?
Through you, Madam Chair, most of the language in swimming pool bylaws these days comes from coroners' inquests and situations of that nature. So without knowing exactly, I would assume it comes from some of those instructions and orders of previous drowning scenarios and what municipalities should be doing and not doing to prevent those kind of sad situations from occurring.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The reason I'm bringing that up is because many people have drowned in less than 6 inches of water. And splash pools that you get from Walmart that only have 18 inches of water to anything are usually for toddlers, and they're the ones at the most dangerous age in their life with regards to being near water, and they're not scared of it, and that's why sometimes things happen. So that's why I was wondering why the 2 feet thing, because a lot of the ones that are less than that are easy accessible for probably under $100 at Walmart or something, and yet to me there can be, especially if accidentally unsupervised, can be one of the most dangerous. But that's my thought. Second question through you, Madam Chair, is normally bylaws with regards to fines, and we've experienced this in the past with noise bylaws and stuff, are they not approved by the province, a high-level judge or something denotes if the fine is acceptable? Can you clarify that for me, please?
Through you, Madam Chair, the fines are approved by the Attorney General's office, and wording is in place that these fines would have to go there. So they're only effective should the province, through the Attorney General's office, confirm that those are appropriate fines in this instance. I understand from discussions with our CBO that these are comparable fines to other municipalities, so we likely stand in good stead, but I could be back reporting to you that they have advised that they're inappropriate. I'll let you know if should there be something like that occur.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, to the Director. So therefore, if this is approved by committee and therefore council in a couple of weeks, it would still have to go to the Attorney General for their final blessing, so to speak.
That is correct.
That is, yes, exactly.
Okay.
Schedule B for sure has to go to the...
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure that the process was there. Thank you.
It is contained in the bylaw, in the wording of the report, somewhere. Yes.
Thank you.
Mayor Joyner.
Well, I seem to be using that word quandary here tonight. I'm in a little bit of a quandary because,
Horns of a dilemma.
yeah, I've listened to everybody, and I wanted to refer this from the beginning because I'm not really satisfied with this bylaw, but then it's kind of my own doing that I'm not grasping this as much. And, you know, I have conferred to my left here and listening to everybody, so, you know, I'm thinking about referring this, but the problem is that we refer it, and then it goes to council, and then it comes back in May, and we wanted, yeah, May, and then, so then we're talking about June, and then it has to go to another level of government, and we've missed the summer season.
Correct.
So that's my quandary.
Yeah.
So I guess we just let this go and vote accordingly, and then, you know, we still have another chance to talk about this at council meeting, and so that gives us a couple of weeks to familiarize ourselves with this bylaw and ask the appropriate questions, perhaps to Director Treble and or the CBO, Mr. Menard, who quite honestly I wish was here tonight. Anyway, I'm just
Can
going to
we,
let it go, Madam Chair.
Mr. Mayor, should this item pass, it may be appropriate to have further information as to the summation of this draft bylaw, but at council for clarity, if anyone wishes. I believe that there's a lot of detail in the definitions, but if that's not satisfactory to clarity that the committee and or council will need, we can send it back at that time, or perhaps Mr. Treble's become conversant, I think, with the concerns we have and may have alternate wording that could be recommended at council. Would that be appropriate for those that have concerns about parts of this bylaw or proposed draft implementation plan?
So in short, have Mr. Menard attend council. That we're looking for, so to answer.
I was doing that as a dance so that you could figure it out afterwards, yes. I don't want to ask him to come. That's your job.
Get clarification.
You couldn't understand the dance? Okay. Okay. It's up to you, Mr. Carter. If you want to be the one here, you can do that too. Okay. So the items on the table, the recommendation is that we approve this. Is it that we want it forwarded to committee, to council? Is there anyone wishing to change the motion on the table without referring it back? Or are we good with what's there, with the understanding that the CBO will be here? Okay? Okay. See, having heard that, all in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. P4717, that would be a information report with regard to the public 911 public emergency responding service addressing remediation. The PDO 5417 regarding 911 public emergency reporting service PERS, P-E-R-S, addressing remediation, dated April 10th, be received for information. That's the recommendation. So we don't really need a motion, do we? We do. It is a report with a recommendation for information. Be received. Councillor Gannon, Councillor Bilsma, all in favor? That motion carries. Okay. Our recommendation report regarding the application of a refreshment cart license to operate at 182 Griffith Street, Cheryl Laking, curbside fries. The recommendation is that report RFD C0617 dated April 10th, 2017 regarding application for a refreshment cart license to operate at 182 Griffith Street North, Griffin. Cheryl Laking curbside fries be received, and that the application for a refreshment cart license as submitted by Cheryl Laking curbside fries to operate a refreshment cart at 182 Griffin Street North be denied based on staff comments that the refreshment cart does not conform to the township's urban design guidelines and its objectives of creating a vibrant and attractive downtown core. I need a mover. Councillor Rayner, seconded by Councillor Bilsma. That is on the table for discussion. Anyone wishing to discuss it?
Everybody does.
I guess so. Councillor Trombetta first. Councillor Bilsma, I'll make a speaker's list.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. CAO, we're going to be doing some work down in that area this year, correct? Legion is, or United Church is some work, is that going this year, or?
Madam Chair, through the Mayor's Council, there's a few projects that are taking place. There's a construction that hopefully is going to get approved at Public Works next week. That's going to be for the parking lot renovations in the partnership. In addition to that, there's also going to be the streetscaping project that was approved last month that's going to start pretty much from that area all the way down to the train tracks.
So the reason why I'm asking those questions was, since that area is going to be under construction, I don't see a problem of extending this one more year. There'll be some added business to curbside fries, obviously. There'll be a lot of construction guys down there, hopefully to get a bite to eat. And you know, it's the timing is, you know, it's going to be all under construction. Like I said, I don't have a problem extending this for one more year due to the construction. And then we revisit this back next year once the streetscaping is complete, the United Church parking lot's hopefully complete, and then we can determine from there. But I think at this point, a one-year extension would be sufficient. I hope the owner will be sufficient with the one-year extension on that. And like I said, you know, there's going to be a lot of construction. That place is going to be all upside down this year, so I don't have an issue extending it for 1 year. I hope my colleagues around the table feel the same way, but I'll let you guys speak and
Thank
go
you,
from there.
Councillor Trombetta. Councillor Bilsma.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I'm of the same mind for probably a couple reasons. I do see the improvement there in the nature of the cart. And I'm, again, so it's very similar to what we talked about before. You know, it's a job, it's a business opportunity. Look, chip trucks and refreshment carts, and they're in every community. They, you know, they form kind of that ad hoc service, and you know, our community then is no different. And I guess finally, you can't. It's not a question of replacing it with something better, in the sense that if we prohibit this use there, you know, it'll remain vacant. And I'm always in, you know, you can't fight something with nothing, or replace something with nothing. You know, it would be better to have them there than not have them there. And finally, just the way that this is, I'm confused now in the process, so some clarity in the process, because this is phrased as a denial.
Correct.
And so if I want them to stay there for the year, and I think that's fair, and we can review this again.
You would vote against the motion
I
on
would
the table?
vote against, turn down the motion.
Correct.
And then they would automatically have that extension?
No.
Or no, see?
No, another motion would have to be put on the table. Sorry. For clarity, you would either amend the current motion, or you would vote this down and then put a motion on the table that would be contrary to the one on the table.
Well, since, so then, since.
In fact, I don't know what they're, in fact, there'd be a reconsideration. The motion that you would put on to not deny this would be contrary to the motion on the table.
It'd be
So in fact,
exact
I need to
opposite.
get you to, this motion needs to fail in order to put another motion on the table.
Correct.
Because
Therein lies my conundrum.
you can.
It's very
But
difficult to
you're
do a
challenging the chair.
recommendation to deny.
All I'm saying is, I think if you want to approve this, then there should be an amendment put on the table. So basically, we would take number 2 recommendation, remove it completely, and say approve.
Correct.
Instead of
For
deny.
1 year or whatever we decide to put in
Yeah, for
there.
1 year. And then there is another, an extra item that I have to deal with, is that under the provisions of a refreshment cart licensing bylaw, we can't allow it on vacant land. So I just need you to say that Township Council waives that provision in the refreshment cart licensing to allow the refreshment cart on vacant lands, which has been a normal process throughout the whole entire time that we've had that fire truck
Application.
on that property.
Yeah.
So basically, all I need is an amendment. We remove number 2, and the number 2 now becomes, it be approved for the year 2017, commencing upon council approval on April 24th. And number 3 being that we
That
waive
little
the provision
exclusion.
for the vacant land.
I'd like to, what you just said,
Could you write that out for us, Jill? 'Cause we're-
I'm,
She already has a motion.
in principle, I'm in favor of all that amendment. If you want me to move it and Councilor Trombetta wants to second it.
So at the appropriate time,
Okay, there you go.
I think we will allow you to put that motion on the table.
Okay, thank you.
But out of respect to those wishing to speak, how about we continue this discussion, and I'll come back to you and your seconder for amendment to this motion.
Perfect.
Okay? I believe I had Councillor Bell next.
I agree with everything's being said. When we do the amendment, in light of some of the confusion that took place last year, I guess, misunderstanding of what was asked of Ms. Laking, I'd like to recommend also that Ms. Laking be directed to get in touch with her CAO to facilitate talking with the landowner to look into what she has to do or they have to do to improve the facility, to bring it up to the urban standards, if she was to stay there, and/or assist in looking for a location that would facilitate her business going forward, yes. So I'd like to have that included in part of that amendment. Okay, thank you.
So if the mover and seconder don't mind a friendly amendment, that can be included in the motion that's being concocted at the moment. I believe I have Councillor Rayner and then Mayor Joyner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just speaking from past experience, who is an individual who on occasion has visited that place, and they make darn good fries, and I'd hate to see it stop.
And it's within the urban boundary.
And it's within the urban boundary.
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rayner. Maybe it uses agricultural land for the potatoes. Anyway, it's just a bit of a joke. It's late. Councillor, Mayor Joyner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to ask the question about reconsideration because I kind of thought maybe that's the way it had to go, because there is a sense of direction that's already been taken back in 2016. And I don't understand where this, or all these comments, how come they weren't here back in 2016? Again, nothing personal. It's just that we've worked very hard on our design guidelines and we're not adhering to them. So it makes me wonder sometimes why we even have guidelines and why staff make recommendations. And I truly believe fry trucks and businesses like you have, Ms. Lakin, there is a need for them. I just don't really believe that is the appropriate spot. I hear it every single day that people come into our municipality. That is like the very first thing that they see when they hit that intersection, and it's very striking, and they don't like it. It's very negative, actually, most of the comments that I hear. The food is all positive. I hear nothing but positive about the food, but the aesthetics of the location does not fit in with our downtown core. That's
Even since we have improved the look of it, I'm sure Joanne has a picture. It used to be
I
a
remember.
lot worse than what it looks now. So are you saying the negative comments are still since we improved it?
Yeah, and the chair gave you a lot of leniency there, and I thank
I
the
did.
chair for doing that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Not a problem.
Ms. Laking, you're not allowed actually to speak, but anyway, she allowed you to. But I would say that I totally believe that what you've done with the improvements aesthetically is 100% better. They totally did not like the old look at all. I think it's not just the actual vehicle or the front porch or the what do you call picnic tables. I think it's the whole entire property that people are just really have a lot of dismay with. And again, I love fry trucks. I love your food. I've eaten there myself and that, but I'm just telling you that many people have approached me and said that is not the right spot for that fry truck. So I was kind of hoping that we would support what staff has come forward with today, with the caveat that we would do everything in our power to help you find a new location. I truly believe that fry trucks work well in industrial parks. I believe it's the type of business where men and women can, get on, take their lunch break and zip over or pre-order and then zip over and pick up their fries, their burgers, their fish and chips and stuff like that. That's what I think works best. But we'll see how this vote goes, and sounds to me like there may be one more year. I will say that Councillor Trombetta asked a question about construction. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the latitude here. He asked about the construction, and it will be basically Station Street up to the tracks, and then there's going to be some construction. We're going to find out more about this at the United Church parking lot. But in 218, there will also be a lot, I'm going to say tenfold more construction. In actual fact, that whole entire intersection is destined to have a set of traffic lights there, if I'm correct, Mr. CAO. So all the way up Highway 20 to the roundabout at South Grimsby Road 6 will all be under construction. Now, some people think that that's going to help your business. I tend to think that that's going to hinder your business, in my opinion, humble opinion. So I'm just saying this, that if you are granted one more year, I would suggest that you desperately look for another site and use this summer to find that site. That would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gannan, did I overlook you?
Well, no.
I apologize if I did.
That's okay.
I just didn't look that way.
No. I just wanted to speak further to what the mayor said, actually, and just having most recently knocked on doors around town, people do appreciate the fact that the chip wagon and everything looks better this year than it did in the past. However, there's a great anti-sentiment about the look of that in our downtown core. The fact that everybody comes in on Highway 20 and that's what they see has been mentioned to me over and over and over again. So I think you need to be aware of that. Again, nothing wrong with food. Food is always spoken highly of, but it's not what people want to see coming into town. And I canvassed, 2,000 houses and heard it many, many, many times over. So I was actually pleased to see that had come up before council and before this committee tonight too. So I would second what the mayor says. I think that you really, even if you get an extension this year, need to look seriously at a new spot, because I don't think that will be the spot forever.
Thank you. Just as a reminder of yesteryear, I know that council of last year not only was careful in the 1 year, they were also very concerned about the amount of investment that was being made and the fact that there was a transaction where there was an ownership change. Not that it was our responsibility to stop free enterprise, but the concern was, and I think I'm on the record as saying that, was that we needed to reach out to tell people that that was not going to be the appropriate site. So if you're hearing what's happening here tonight, if this motion does carry, and I'm going to wait for a couple minutes because we're missing someone, but if this motion does carry, you do need to hear what committee is saying to you, committee and council ultimately, which will be that you need to look for a different place in order to have that chip truck, because last year was 1 year, and council's now willing to overturn that 1 year if they do give you a second year. Now, I want to just take a minute, if anyone has anything else to say, just to make sure that we're at full capacity when we have this vote, if that wouldn't mind. And if we read the motion, I know we'll have to read it again.
Sure. We can move it.
It's the seventh inning stretch.
I was going to say, yeah, we can move it, second it, and then get that accomplished? No.
No, because we're going, if we want to amend the motion on the floor, I want to make sure that everyone is fully aware of what the motion is. You're aware of what the motion is on the floor, which is to deny an additional year for the chip truck to be at 182 Griffin Street. I believe the clerk has an amending motion that she's proposing be considered by the mover and seconder. So, Ms. Shime?
Okay. The amending motion is that item P 48-17 of the April 10th Planning Building Environmental Committee meeting, more specifically report RFD-C-0617 be amended to remove recommendation number 2 and replace it with the following recommendation and add additional recommendations. So number 2 will be replaced with that the application for refreshment cart license as submitted by Cheryl Laking, Curbside Fries, to operate a refreshment cart at 182 Griffin Street North be approved for the year 2017, commencing upon council approval on April 24th, 2017. And 3, that Township Council waive the provision of condition 3, bracket A of the refreshment cart licensing bylaw, bylaw 2010-20, and allow Sharon Laking, Curbside Fries, to operate her refreshment cart on vacant lands municipally known as 182 Griffin Street North, Smithville. And 4, that the applicant be advised that along with the property owner, that they meet with the CAO to facilitate improvements to the property to bring it to the standard that would be in line with the township's urban design guidelines and its objectives of creating a vibrant and attractive downtown core.
I need a mover. That would be Councillor Bilsma. Are you satisfied with that
Yep.
motion? And Councillor Trombetta, you were going to second that?
I'll second it for comments.
Okay, now I'm looking for comments. Councillor Bell, was your hand up? Okay. Mayor Joyner?
So my comment would be the part of the last part there is that we're asking the client to actually sit down with the CAO and talking about making improvements to the property. Well, quite honestly, I don't believe that Ms. Laking owns the property, so what would make her make any improvements to it? I think what it should say is that Ms. Laking and the owner to sit down with the CAO. I think that makes more sense to make adjustments to the property.
Ms. Shimei, could you read that part again? I believe
That's what the recommendation says. It says that the applicant be advised along with the property owner, meet with the CAO.
Yeah, you missed it.
But that was very good. That was exactly what you wanted in there. Okay, so,
Let's call question.
I know, it was rather quick. We went from 2 to 4. Did you?
Question. I'm good. All good. It's very good. It's all good.
Okay?
Vote.
Okay, so, can you please read the recommendation again, Ms. Shimei, for everyone in the room to make sure that it's ultra clear?
Okay, so it's moved by Councillor Bilsma, seconded by Councillor Trombetta, that item P 4817 of the April 10th Planning Building Environmental Committee meeting, more specifically report RFD C-06-17 be amended to remove recommendation number 2 and replace it with the following recommendation and add additional recommendations. 2, that the applicant for a refreshment cart license as submitted by Cheryl Laking, Curbside Fries, to operate a refreshment cart at 182 Griffin Street North be approved for the year 2017, commencing upon council approval on April 24th, 2017, and that Township Council waive the provision of condition 3, bracket A of the refreshment cart licensing bylaw, bylaw 2010-20, and allow Cheryl Laking, Curbside Fries, to operate her refreshment cart on vacant lands municipally known as 182 Griffin Street North, Smithville, and that the applicant, along with the property owner, meet with the CAO to facilitate improvements to the property to bring it up to the standard that would be in line with the township's urban design guidelines and objectives of creating a vibrant and attractive downtown core.
Amen. Still speaking to the motion on the floor, Councillor Trombetta first.
Just for clarity, 2017 and 2017 only, correct? Madam Clerk? And then
Be approved for the year
January
2017. I can put only.
If the owner comes for renewal, the January 1st come for renewal, correct? That doesn't need to be
2018.
2018, January 1st, 2018 to come for renewal, because it'll expire December 31st, correct? Does it need to be stated in that motion or not?
No, that's part of the refreshment cart licenses, but it's based on a calendar year.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Joyner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I may not be very popular here tonight, but
It's okay.
unfortunately, That's just the way it is on certain issues. I will not be voting in favor of the amendment, and I will not be voting in favor of the amendment, what's the other word? The other thing
As
we say?
amended.
The motion as
As amended.
amended. I believe that part of the amendment says that we have to have asked the owner of the Curbside Fries and the owner of the property to sit down with the CAO to talk about urban design. Well, there's nothing to talk about. It does not meet the standards of our urban design manual. I'm sorry, it doesn't. And that is why we're in the place that we are last year. That's how we got to this place today. So if we are going to go back on that and that amendment to say, sit down with the CAO, we've totally done something that we weren't in favor of last year. So Madam Chair, it's
No,
okay?
No, I don't have a problem with your comment, Mr. Mayor. I hear you. I'm already struggling with the whole idea that we took out a part of the motion and we put a contrary motion on the table.
Yeah.
That confuses me. But, and I understand it would be difficult for anyone to want to spend money on a location where they're only going to have a very short season. So I'm struggling with that myself.
And I thank you for that point, because I totally forgot that. And you're right, you did own that last year. And you said, why are we making this poor girl spend more money when she's not going to be there another year? And we only had your best interest in mind. So that's why I say what you should be doing is, if this does not go forward, is sitting down with our Director of Planning, our CAO, and myself, and let's find you a different appropriate location.
Okay, so that's the whole thing. We've got to be careful. You know, you can't have both sides of the stick. You're going to let her stay there. Please don't demand she improve it this year for 1 year. Yes, Councillor Bilsma.
I think it's on now. Just, you know, as, you know, and to speak to what the mayor said, and he's right, our guidelines, though, generally acknowledge that businesses and buildings and stuff exist, and there's a bit of a grandfathering process there, you know, and that's natural in any community. These guidelines are for new and the types of improvements that slowly are being made. And look, I got comments even this day about how our downtown core is improving, and that's what people want to see. They understand that there is a process to it, but they're noticing that things are, and it was from the most unlikely sources. I was flabbergasted that they had made that comment that the town is looking better. That being said, this is a process, so being sensitive to what the mayor said, at the same time, we can't all of a sudden just go into every business downtown and say, look, you need to do pink siding and with green shutters, because that's what we designed, and that's what we think is appropriate for you. All get on board because this is the year we're going to do it. Things are grandfathered. So I just want to get that stated as well. But I will be supporting this. Enough said. Thank you.
Thank you. End of comments. Everybody's happy. The mover and the seconder are happy with this. So the motion is duly put on the table as amended. So on the amendment, you want a recorded vote? First of all, we're doing the amendment, and then we'll do the motion as amended. Not on that part. All right, so we're doing on the amendment, which is for, no. The motion took out the deny, and we're going for 1 more year, and we're not having pink and green. I'm confused. We're going to ask her to meet with the CAO to look at opportunities with the owner to improve the urban design, and we're going to exempt her from the vacant lot ability to be there, and we're going to allow her to be there for another year, right? That's what the motion is now. I think I captured
Amendment
that.
is.
That is the amendment. So on the amendment, all in favor? Okay. Contrary minded? Okay. Now, that motion carries. On the main motion, which is virtually the amendment with the other one to receive it. All in favor? So that's the main motion. That's the motion as amended. The original motion as amended. And I'm saying the only thing different on the motion as amended is the amendment and the motion to receive. Anyway, all in favor? That is, I have 4. Contrary minded, because I don't know what to say, 1, 2. That means that motion carries. Okay.
Welcome back.
Thank you for this wonderful debate. Godspeed. No one wanted it recorded. I asked them, Ms. Laking, it's been a very difficult task. I hope you heard everything that was said here. And this motion, this item will be going forward to council on the 24th.
Madam Chair.
Sir,
I'm just a tad confused. So
good for you.
if we were to vote in favor of that last motion,
Yes,
that was the motion
as amended.
as amended, but we never did do anything with the original motion.
Yes, we did. We removed number 2 and
Yes,
added a new 2, 3,
that was the
and 4.
clerk's. She removed the original 2 and put in a new 2, 3, and 4.
So as process, we're allowed to do that? We don't have to vote down the original motion in order to change that?
There was my point about the contrary-minded, but the clerk has told me we're okay, so I'm going with that.
I'm just clarifying because
I
it's
understand.
was a little different on how that all
We
played out.
shouldn't be moving things in denial, in a manner of
Okay.
speaking. Generally, as a principle.
You're right.
That's all.
So we're going to
Makes
have
things-
a couple of learning sessions. One will be about planning and secondary plan areas, and the other one will be about clerk motions. So
In denial.
you're all going back to school as a result of tonight. Yes, sir, I was going there. We're done with that one. And now I believe we move on to item P4917. Thank you, Mr. Carter, for this. I've taught you well. This would be a request. You're almost as many wherefores, therefores. I just want you to know that I took a lot of abuse when I put 27 of them through. But this is regarding the request for the province to place an immediate and retroactive moratorium on school closures, and the recommendation is, whereas the current accommodation review process is not reflective of the reality of rural school and community life, and whereas rural schools are an integral to the future of rural municipalities, and whereas the province of Ontario recognizes that it is critical that continued student achievement and well-being form part of the review process for school closures, and whereas the school closures impact single school, small rural communities in educational, social, and economic aspects to a far greater degree than those who would be impacted in multi-school urban communities, and whereas the Township of West Lincoln is a small rural community who is deeply concerned that the current process to consider rural school closures is not inclusive and timelines do not provide for adequate community input, and whereas the Township of West Lincoln supports the actions that have been taken by many municipalities within the province of Ontario, as well as the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, through their correspondence to the Minister of Education dated January 5th, 2017, and the Rural Ontario Municipal Association in their correspondence dated March 15th, 2017, with respect to, but not limited to, school closures, pupil accommodation, that was a slip, review guideline and accommodation review process, and whereas the province of Ontario should be concerned for the health of all our children, for the quality of education of all our children in Ontario, as well as the viability of our towns, villages, and neighborhoods, which are negatively impacted by reducing access to schools within each community, and now therefore be resolved that the municipality of the Township of West Lincoln hereby requests the Minister of Education establish an immediate moratorium on the accommodation review process in all school boards until such time as review of the above-mentioned impacts on small rural communities is studied, completed, and results and recommendations are implemented, and that the Minister of Education rewrite the pupil accommodation review guideline in order to take into consideration community and economic value consideration of rural communities and provide for a more democratic process, and that the Minister of Education place a retroactive moratorium on those school closures that are to occur during the current year over the next couple of years until such time as the pupil accommodation review guideline is rewritten and recommendations applied to all current and proposed school closures, and that a resolution be circulated to the Minister of Education, Premier Kathleen Wynne, Minister of Infrastructure, Minister of Municipal Affairs, the District School Board of Niagara, the Niagara Catholic District School Board and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, Rural Ontario Municipal Association, MPP, Sam Oosteroff for Niagara West Glanbrook, and all municipalities of Ontario. I need a mover. Councillor Ganan. Amen. Thank you. I had schooling. Councillor Trombetta seconded that motion. I suppose the mayor wants to speak to it. Councillor Rayner wishes to speak to it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am in total agreement with all this, and I thank all the councillors and staff that spent hours on putting this together. It was a lot of work. My first question to you, Madam Chair, and I'm not sure who can answer this, perhaps the CAO, perhaps the Director of Planning, is this for schools going forward? But I don't understand that to be true. I understand it to be the high school that is currently being closed. And my question is that they do not consider South Lincoln High School as a rural school. That's the problem.
We're not a rural school board. And I think you have to be careful of the reading of this, all the whereases. The recitals are put forward to talk about rural schools, rural communities, whereas our school board is not considered a rural school board.
But as I understand it, Madam Chair, South Lincoln High School, even though it's in a rural community, is not a rural school by the definition in the policy. So, which makes the very first whereas, and whereas rural schools are integral to the future of rural communities, they're not considering South Lincoln High School a rural school. And so then that is contrary to the motion, to the recommendation.
So we can change those, but I'll get the CAO to make sure I am not criticizing his good works here, because we can certainly change that to whereas
And I don't
schools
mean,
in rural communities.
and I don't mean to criticize either. I like the intent of this total recommendation. I'm just asking the questions. I don't want them to be able to come back to us and say, South Lincoln High School is not a rural school.
Sorry. Madam Chair, through the Mayor's Council, we can just make this a general statement then and not getting word specific. So to cover both sides, whether it's rural or urban, I think we can change the language to meet those needs. In addition to that, I can get confirmation tomorrow and send out an email to all of council. The classification, however, will be our directive that we just make this a statement that covers both sides.
We are trying to make it noted that we are a small community with a school that serves a whole rural community around us. So good point, Mayor Joyner. And so with that modification, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, we'll see how that goes. Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess technically, if they were to close Caister Central School, that would be a rural school.
Well, that would be a school in rural
Urban
Niagara.
School because it's within the urban boundary. I think that's what the mayor is trying
think-
to say. Is that technically?
Wait a minute, I'm going to let Councillor Ganan, who may be able to offer clarity along with the CAO.
Yeah. Just to clarify a little bit, Madam Chair, the District School Board of Niagara is not considered a rural
School board.
school board. And that's because it's made up of the city of St. Catharines and Niagara Falls and Fort Erie and Welland, as well as little old West Lincoln kind of tacked on the side of it. So if they were trying to close Caister School, it would be exactly the same thing. They would not be part, in spite of the fact we all know it's a very rural school. Its board that it sits in is not considered a rural board. So in actual fact, I think that all the whereases here cover that fairly clearly. It tells us that going on all across the province is a fight against closing rural schools. And some of them are in towns, and so it has nothing to do with the urban boundary per se. It's the definition of the school board. And we, unfortunately, fall outside of that definition as a rural school simply because we are not part of a rural board, recognized as a rural school board. And so the fact that we've said that we know what the reality is, that they're looking at that all along, and I think if you go down to about the fourth whereas, or the fifth, where the township of West Lincoln is a small rural community who is deeply concerned, I think, and the fact that we're saying we're considering all rural school closures not good. I mean, I think the intent is there, and I think it actually does state, Mr. Mayor, what we want it to say, given the fact that we're recognizing. We could have something in that says recognizing that the school board that we fall under is not defined as a rural school board. You could make it more clear than that. But I think the intent is covered there. I think the importance is that we are trying to stick up for what's going on right across the province.
Hang on, I'm just trying to write that down. whereas the school board of Niagara is not considered a rural school board. Councillor Rayner still has the floor, Mr. Mayor, and then I'll come back to you.
I understand it's not considered a rural because I have been where our tax dollars are invested in a huge palace where their head office is in St. Catharines. It is quite a temple that they built with that.
Okay, Councillor Rayner.
It's formerly a rural
But moving on
farmland.
to something else. I believe last month, Mrs. LeBlanc from Ward 1 came here and was very critical with regards to the saving of the school, and my participation in this, which she found out later was supportive. This will continue as a supportive. Unfortunately, she didn't know all the details, and the fact, as was mentioned to her last month, that a lot of the details regarding what you're seeing tonight was behind the scenes at the time. It did not mean, and she was critical of whole council and committee with regards to the fact that she did not appear to see much interest from us with regards to saving this. She's not here tonight, unfortunately. This would have been a great night for her to show up, and maybe she would realize that we are supportive. But she was very angry that night that she felt that.
Councillor Rayner, please move on.
Was not.
Yeah.
So I'm moving on, saying that I hope this is indicating to her that yes, we are active, yes, we do understand what's going on, and we are trying to resolve the issue to the best of our ability that this council can do. We were unanimous last month, and I'm trusting and I'm hoping that tonight.
You're hoping.
will be the same.
Thank you. And we never know who's watching us anymore. Big Brother's right up there. So I had Councillor Ganan. Did you wish to speak again? You were just giving clarification before. So you're okay? Okay. Trombetta?
I'm in support, so we'll move this forward.
Okay. Mayor Joyner was wishing to speak for the second time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, I don't wish to wordsmith here. I just wish for council to perhaps maybe just have a quick look at the 7th whereas. And it says, and whereas the province of Ontario should be concerned for the health of all of our children, for the quality of education of all of our children in Ontario, as well as the viability of our towns, villages, and neighborhoods which are negatively impacted by reducing access to schools. I like that statement. I believe it totally to be true. I totally agree with the intent. What I don't see there is that us going back and making the province understand that they've come out with places to grow guidelines, and they're not adhering to it. So I would like somewhere in there, and it's very simple, I'm hoping, that we can come back with just a little bit of a tweak at council. I wish everybody to support this, but if we could come back with just a little bit of a tweak to say something in there to the fact that, you know what, province, you need to adhere to your places to grow policies. If you want to make those policies and you want certain parts of the planning to follow it, then the school board should be made to follow that too as well. So I would just hope that staff would take that under guidance and come back with maybe just a tweak of the 7th whereas. Thank you.
Are you saying, Mr. Mayor, that you're looking for something that says, and whereas the future intensification requirement of many municipalities will require schools in the future? Is that what you're saying? Are you looking for the fact that as we grow, we will probably need the school again? Because the argument of closing and not closing is another one?
Well, I think that's, I agree, again, I agree with your intent, and I know where you're going with that, but their argument is going to be, well, we're not closing this school, we're going to repurpose it and bring the elementary kids over, so that's how they're going to answer that. I just want something.
You're just moving your high school
I
kids.
want something to be said in there that, province, you've come up with places to go policies and you're not following them. It's plain and simple. You're not following your places to grow policies and guidelines.
Help me understand that. Can you say that differently?
Because in order, their places to grow guidelines, and Brian, you can help me out with this maybe, is to say that we need, as a municipality, and every municipality across Ontario needs to create a complete community. Well, to me, a complete community includes a high school and elementary schools. And when you pluck that high school out of your community, you no longer have a complete community.
I see. You're talking about the complete community concept. Okay, Mr. Treble, did you want to add to that?
No,
That's
just
fine.
complete community was the point, I think.
I understand.
Nice
I was letting you
try.
off the hook. You said no.
Yes. The reality is, I think, though, that we've got the Ministry of Education that operates to a totally different drum than the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Exactly.
That's the struggle.
And places to grow and green energy and green belts all are different. God didn't make little green apples.
I guess my comment back to that would be, you're right, and I would agree that that is probably the biggest, largest problem that our provincial government has. right? They could get on side when they wanted to pass the Green Energy Act and have rewrite 5 different ministries. But when it comes to school closures, you know, one ministry doesn't talk to the other. And I get that. I see that every single day in social services and public health at the Niagara region too as well. But I think we need to make people understand at the province, especially we need to make AMO, Roma, and FCM understand that, you know, we're not going to stand for ministries, inter-ministries not speaking with each
So
other.
whereas inter-ministry discussion has not clarified or is not of one mind, is that what you're looking for, something of that, to take into consideration complete communities as well as the well-being of communities? So something like that added before we get to council is where the mayor's intending to go?
Yes.
So whereas inter-ministry discussion seems to be lacking, or that, something of that sort.
Madam Chair?
Mr. CAO.
Thank you. And through the members of council, I think you're also
Whereas-
trying to also say that they are to adhere to their own policies and guidelines that they are approving and advising municipalities to adhere to. So if we have to adhere to their policies, why are they not adhering to their own policies? So that has to, I think that was one of your key points of saying, you know, there you go. Thank you.
We're writing all this down. The clerk is writing fiendishly. What is that, Councillor Rayner? Okay. That's fair. You're right. Remember, we are children of the province. So, the intent of this motion is to capture all of the ideas and to be absolutely correct on who we are and what we're asking of the province. And it would appear that we're asking for 2 or 3 additions, which is that we ask that a whereas be added that would suggest that the ministry act and adhere to the guidelines that they set out for municipalities to follow and require them to follow. And whereas interministerial discussion does not appear to have been undertaken such that this particular school closure requirement does not look at complete communities or motions from other ministries. And I think that the third one that was brought up is that future intensification requirements may require these very same schools to be available in the future as growth occurs. Those are the 3. I am asking if that motion is duly, oh, did you want to speak to this?
I just wanted to ask one question.
Sorry, I didn't have you down, so Councillor Bell, okay, go ahead.
Well, everything's been said. I'm going to venture to say what we're really recommending. We're taking all this, we're recommending it goes back to staff, get rewritten, come back to council instead of waiting for a month.
Oh,
and bring it back. We want
absolutely.
this back at council to move forward.
Sorry.
Just trying to-
Yes, it's that all of these amendments to these clarifications
Yeah.
will come back in the rewritten motion at council. Okay? All right.
Aye. We're voting.
Councillor, somebody calling the question, or are we asking questions?
I thought we were there already.
Councillor Rayner, did you wish to speak to this again?
I just have a question to the CAO, and
Sure.
I don't want to make this sound negative, the fact that it's not going to happen, but is there a better possibility that this is going to go to the level of government that will entertain the comments and concerns of this municipality as compared to what happened when we did this with the turbines?
Madam Chair, through the members of council, I think there was different levels of communication with the turbines. We were successful in some regards of rerouting the transmission lines. So some of that aspect of that communication was successful. Some of it was not in terms of us actually getting them. So to answer that question, I think it all depends on how much dialogue administration continues to have with the school board, because we all know administration has been meeting with the school board behind the scenes on a regular basis at any time we can to bend their ears and provide ideas and suggestions until they figure out the final approval plan of where the next school might be, and there's still further steps they have to adhere to. That being said, I can't really comment on if it's going to be successful or not.
I'm just saying, is at least going to be heard or listened to? I support what they're trying to do, because there's an old saying, trying to beat a dead horse, not get you anywhere. That was almost like we felt like when we were fighting the province with the turbines. And I'm just saying, is this a similar scenario, or is this one really got a better chance of people listening and different people that will really pay more attention to the concerns of the municipalities that are saying there's an injustice here? Can we please discuss this?
Right, and
Just to that, if you listened to question period in Queen's Park on Friday, there was several MPPs who were talking about this. 600 rural municipalities are in danger of losing their schools, some schools, and Mr. Osterhoff made a motion that was supported by a number of his party. It didn't make it past the motion to put it on the floor. So are people listening? I think for that, I don't want to put the CAO on that spot, but I just saw it. Look, if we don't ever say anything, how's anybody going to know we weren't happy? It was this committee and council that directed staff to meet behind the scenes with the powers that be to keep going to see if there was any influence we could have, and we'll see how successful we are. But certainly, people are taking it forward, and our MPP is listening to us, so it's the best we can do. I didn't mean to take away from your comments.
Madam Chair, through the members of council, right now, as the CAO, I still believe there's opportunity for dialogue. I don't believe right now I'm saying it's correct. I think there's still opportunity to have some positive dialogue. So we'll leave it with that.
Yeah, that makes me feel better. It's nice when there is hope. That's all I'm saying.
Don't give up hope. Is that rain?
Yep.
Well, we can stay now because it's raining. Okay, so
Mine are just down.
could you stay for the vote? Mr. Mayor?
It's pouring.
Yes, I don't think we have to worry about a tied vote.
Go.
All in favor? That motion carries. Go. Did you want a recorded vote?
It's all full.
Okay.
Maps are soaked in the door pockets.
All right, so we're moving on to P5017. Yes, Mr. Councillor Rainier.
Just to help the situation, I don't want to see the Premier in a bad situation, but if he's got a sunroof, he should also make the
Next, we're going on to P50-17. That is regarding a judicial review of the District School Board of Niagara accommodation review relating to the closure of South Lincoln High School. The recommendation is whereas on March 28, 2017, the District School Board of Niagara resolved to close South Lincoln High School, Grimsby Secondary School, and Beamsville District Secondary School. Good night. And whereas South Lincoln High School is scheduled to close on June 30th, 2017, and Grimsby Secondary School and Beamsville Secondary School are slated to close at the end of 2019-2020 school year. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Minister of Education and the District School Board of Niagara be advised that the Township of West Lincoln will file an application for a judicial review with the Superior Court of Justice from the District School Board of Niagara's decision to close South Lincoln High School, and that this resolution be circulated for information to the Minister of Education, Premier Kathleen Wynne, Minister of Infrastructure, Minister of Municipal Affairs, the District School Board of Niagara, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, Rural Ontario Municipal Association, MPP Sam Ostroff, pardon me, and all municipalities in Ontario. I need a mover. Councillor Gannan, Councillor Bell. Comments? We have no more comments. We're winded.
Yep.
All in favor? That motion carries. Mayor
Under
John.
two.
Oh, Lord. Okay, there is an item on the table here, P5117, under the mayor, but I think you've all received information. This is regarding a future growth potential special council meeting. It is being offered by the region of Niagara. It is starting at 9 o'clock, and it is being held here in our fire hall, and it is only for staff and council of this municipality. At this point, it's being offered to us about the implications of future growth. It is there for information. No, this is an item P51. This is oh, there it is, look at, that a special council meeting be held on Monday, May 2nd, 2017 at 9 a.m. to discuss the Township of West Lincoln's future growth potential. Moved by Mayor Joyner. Seconded by Councillor Bell. This is an opportunity, it's an offer from the region, from the Director of Planning, Commissioner of Planning and Development to offer a person to us. Any questions? I'm getting there, sorry. Yes, Councillor
I
Gannon.
think it's a great offer, but I have a problem with that date. Were there any other dates suggested as possibilities, or are we locked into that date? Which I think is not actually Monday, it's Tuesday, isn't it?
It's, just a second, I'll look.
I think it's Tuesday.
I think so too, and I have a problem with that day too.
Yeah, so May 2nd is not.
It's being offered, and that's why I made it very clear that it was for us and us alone. If it is for us and us alone, it seems rather frivolous to have it if parts of council are already conflicted. You're never going to get all council members there, but the point is that, yes, it is Tuesday. Did you want to speak to this, Mr. Treble?
Just really briefly, we were aware, staff was aware of the potential for conflict. So the mayor and I have spoken, and I've reached out to regional staff to see if there are alternate dates.
Yes.
But Nicole, the person that was coordinating that, is not available until Wednesday of this week. So I don't have an answer as of yet. If there is an alternate that possibly works better, we can certainly probably let council know by
Council meeting.
council and adjust it accordingly then. But as of right now, we didn't want to give up the date we had because it's taken since before Christmas to even get this date.
But it is a Tuesday.
It is a Tuesday,
It is
apparently.
Tuesday. And so just for the record, if,
That's what I want. Is it the day or the date?
it's the date, 9 o'clock in the morning.
Councillor Ganad says she could do the first.
Monday, but I can't do Tuesday, Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
So, this is no relevance, but as a show of hands, how many people are conflicted on that day and could not make that just for, you're not voting on the motion. I'm just saying, how many would it be? We can stay for a while, it's thundering. How many people would be conflicted that day? Can I just see a show of hands?
Enough said, man.
So we've got 1, 2, 3, and myself. That's 4 members of council that would. Me, Billsma, Gannan, and Trombetta. They all put their hand up.
For what?
During the day, I'll always.
Yes, you will always be
Oh,
conflicted.
no, I'm good.
You are good now.
Yeah, I know. I was waving at Rayner.
So really just.
The microphone's still on. Okay.
So, Madam Chair, don't consider me in any of these.
You will be conflicted, but you'll always be conflicted.
Okay.
Okay. A man who cannot attend the daytime workshop, and that is appropriate, which might lead to an evening sometime to ensure that we all have, if we're going to have many of these. Okay, so can we, by council, have an understanding of what options are there so that we could possibly pursue more of council being there? Thank you.
All documentation will be provided, and a follow-up or teleconference will be provided from the region to council.
Amen.
And it will be filmed, because it is a council meeting, so it will be filmed and put on YouTube too.
No, it won't be. No.
Oh, right, sorry. It's gotta be fun.
Okay, so having said that, there's a special council meeting of May 2nd. This may be up for alteration as of council when and if there are alternate dates, but at this point in time, it's a special council meeting on May 2nd at 9 a.m. to discuss the Township of West Lincoln's future growth potential. All in favor? Okay, that motion carries. P52, 17 members of committee. This is other business of an informative nature. Councillor Bell? Good. Councillor Bilsma? Gannan? Councillor Gannan? Mayor Joyner?
I'll go last, if that's okay.
No.
I just wanted to say that this Friday, Good Friday, is our annual West Lincoln
Easter egg.
Easter egg hunt, and it starts at 7 o'clock in the morning at the Leisureplex, and it will be in certain categories of ages of kids. Thank you.
That's great. Councillor Trombetta has already said he doesn't have anything.
Just want to wish everyone a happy Easter this
Ah.
weekend, to all your families, and you as well, the director.
Two members of committee staff,
Sunday, one on Monday.
Greek and East. Okay, so
Also, let the
Yes. Counselor Rayner, I thought. You were going to call me Rayner? No, I wasn't. Counselor Rayner, did you have any other informative nature business that you wish to bring forward at this time?
Not at this time, but thank you.
Thank you very much. Very much. Sorry, I thought I'd seen Counselor Trombetta say no and that Counselor Rayner was absent. That's why, Mr. Mayor, I suggested you go when you did. But now that we've concluded that, and I have nothing of a nature other than to say to all the staff, members of the community, and to my colleagues, Happy Easter and a very safe, enjoyable, and family-filled Easter. Okay. I'm now moving to confidential matters, item 5317, which is a legal property personnel matter relating to an identifiable individual, transmission line, South Grimsby Road 6 issue, which applicable closed session exemptions are litigation or potential litigation, including matters before an administrative tribunal affecting the municipality or local board, personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and security of the property of the municipality or local board. And on item 5417, which is a legal matter of an OMB hearing, an interim control bylaw, and the applicable closed session exemptions are personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before an administrative tribunal affecting the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And item P5517, which is a legal matter with FWRN LP Industrial Wind Turbine Project and the road use agreement, and the applicable closed session exemptions are litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, the security of the property of the municipality or local board, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and item P38-17, which is a legal matter regarding the purchase or sale and sale of township lands in the industrial park, and the applicable closed session exemptions are personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and a proposed or pending acquisition or disposal of land by the municipality or local board. And that is all of the items that would move us into closed. Can I have a motion to take us into closed session? Councillor Rayner, Councillor Bell. All in favor? That motion carries. Okay.